Sergeants, please start your recordings.
Recording
Host,
to PC on the way.
we are on gallery view. Just give me a second while we confirm the stream. Sergeants, please start your recordings.
PC recording on the way.
Cloud is up.
Okay, we're in speaker view. We can start now. Good morning. Welcome to New York City Council's remote subcommittee hearing on zoning and franchises. Everyone, please turn on your video at this time. Silence all electronic devices. All written testimony can be submitted to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Again, that is landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Thank you. Chair Riley, we're ready to begin.
Good morning and welcome to a meeting of the Subcommittee of Zoning and Franchises. I'm Councilmember Kevin Riley, Chair of the Subcommittee. This morning, I am joined remotely by Council Members Abreu, Moya, Hanks, Carr, Bacha, Richardson Jordan, Ressler, Shulman, Farias, and Moya. Today, we will vote on rezoning proposals for 146-93 Guy R. Brewer Boulevard in Queens and 103 Lee Avenue in Brooklyn that were heard by the subcommittee on April 12th, and the 35-01 Vernon Boulevard in Queens and 2300 Crosby Avenue in Brooklyn that were heard by the subcommittee on April 26th. We will also hold public hearings on 1930 AD Avenue in my district in the Bronx and 145 Museum of Civil Rights in Manhattan. Before we begin, I recognize the subcommittee council to review the hearing procedures.
Thank you, Chair Riley, and good morning, council members, subcommittee members. Members of the public wishing to testify were asked to register for today's hearings. If you wish to testify and have not already registered, please do so now by visiting the New York City Council website at www.council.nyc.gov/land use to sign up. Members of the public may also view a live stream broadcast of this meeting at the council's website. If you need an accessible version of this presentation, of any of the presentations, shown today, please send an email request to landusetestimony, one word, @council.nyc.gov. When called to testify, individuals appearing before the subcommittee will remain muted until recognized by the chair to speak. Applicant teams will be recognized as a group and called first, followed by members of the public. When chair recognizes you, your microphone will be unmuted. Please take a moment to check your device and confirm that your mic is on before you begin speaking. Public testimony will be limited to 2 minutes per witness. But if you have additional testimony you would like the subcommittee to consider, or if you have written testimony you would like to submit instead of appearing here before the subcommittee, you may email it to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Please indicate the LU number and/or project name in the subject line of your email. During the hearing, council members with questions should use the Zoom raise hand function, which appears at the bottom of either your participant panel or the primary viewing window. Council members with questions will be announced in order as they raise their hands, and Chair Riley will then recognize members to speak. Witnesses are requested to remain in the meeting until excused by the chair, as council members may have questions. Finally, there will be pauses over the course of this meeting for various technical reasons, and we ask that you please be patient with us as we work through any issues. Chair Riley will now continue with today's agenda items.
Thank you, Council. Today, we will vote to approve with modifications pre-considered LU 39 and 40 for the 146-93 Guy R. Brewer Boulevard rezoning in Majority Whip Brooks Powers District in Queens. The proposal will rezone an existing R3-2 to an R6A/C2-2 district and a related zoning text amendment to establish an MIH program area utilizing option 1 and 2. The council is modifying the zoning map amendment from the proposed R6A district to an R5B district to better reflect the surrounding community character of small 1 and 2 family homes. We are also reducing the rezoning area in order to concentrate this denser new development at the intersection of two wide streets that, in recognition of the applicant's commitment to provide a community facility use, such as an urgent care medical office. The proposed C2-2 commercial overlay will remain in place over the full block frontage to bring existing business into compliance with zoning. I'll note that the council is in receipt of a letter from the applicant indicating withdrawal of the proposed text amendment, which is not applicable to R5B zoning district. Therefore, pursuant to Council Rule 11.60B, pre-considered LU 40 for the 146-93 Guy R. Brewer zoning text amendment proposal is hereby withdrawn and the application is void. Majority Whip Powers is in support of the proposed as modified. We will also vote to approve with modification pre-considers LUs 41 and 42 related to the 103 Lee Avenue rezoning proposal in Councilmember Ressler's district in Brooklyn. The proposal would rezone an existing R6 and R6/C1-3 to an R7X/C2-4 and establish an MIH program area utilizing MIH option 1 and 2. These proposals will facilitate the development of a new 8-story mixed-use building. Our modification will remove the 100 Lee Avenue site from the rezoning area in order to avoid incentivizing the direct displacement of numerous small retail and neighborhood services businesses currently located at that site. Councilmember Ressler is in support of this proposal as modified, and I would just like to allow Councilmember Ressler to give any remarks regarding this project.
Well, it's always a good day to be with Chair Riley. Thank you very much for the opportunity to say a few words and to join my colleagues. I can't say that I'm happy about this project. It didn't land exactly where I was hoping, but in the end, I think it merits approval with modifications. And we're recommending a modified rezoning area to include 103 Lee, but not 100 Lee. 100 Lee Avenue includes, I believe, 11 small businesses that are integral to serving our community. And I would be very concerned about their displacement in new development. At 100 Lee, the developer sought an unusual zoning change for the site, but we've agreed to it thanks to the development team agreeing that they would cap the proposed building at 8 stories. And so what they could have built as of right, which I believe was 5 stories, the new 8-story development will now include affordable housing and be subject to MIH, which is a good thing. And the development team worked with us to try to effectively meet the needs of the local community in South Williamsburg. So we'll see more 3-bedroom units, more 2-bedroom units, less 1-bedroom units in the final project that's been proposed. The development team has also agreed to codify all of that in a community benefits agreement, which we will finalize in advance of the full council vote. So this was not the most enjoyable negotiation that I've ever been through, but I'm happy that we have resolved it and are moving forward and expanding housing supply in South Williamsburg where it's so desperately needed. I talk to families in South Williamsburg every day who are moving to Muncie, who are moving to KJ, who are Kiris Joel, who are moving to Lakewood, who are moving to even Borough Park. And they desperately want to stay in Williamsburg, but there isn't the housing for them. And the 50 odd units, 49 units that will be generated here, including some affordable units and more larger units, will be helpful. So I really just want to thank the applicant team for bearing with us, for working with us. I really want to thank the council land use staff, Raju and Brian, for engaging and helping. I want to thank the many community leaders who inserted themselves here to try to help us work out a final agreement. And I most of all want to thank my team, Mariana and Arvind. Arvind in particular is our land use point, did a terrific job here and were just incredibly diligent and helpful. And I am very, very fortunate to have just exceptionally talented folks working on our office, and really appreciate all the hard work that you put into this. So thank you all. And thanks for the opportunity to say a couple words, Chair Riley, and to my colleagues. I apologize for going on a little long.
No, it's all right, Councilmember Ressler. I also would like to acknowledge the Majority Whip Brooks Powers and Councilmember Mealy and Councilmember Farias who joined us. Majority Whip Brooks Powers, would you like to give any remarks regarding the Guy R. Brewer zoning?
Yes, and good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chair Riley, for convening today's zoning subcommittee hearing. I wanted to take a brief moment today to convey my support for the item on today's agenda in my district at 146-93 Guy R. Brewer Boulevard. The proposed upzoning has been reduced from an R6A to an R5B residential use, covering solely the development lot, while keeping intact the proposed C2-2 commercial overlay on the site and the neighboring lots to the north. It is my hope that this combination will attract new economic uses and make a positive contribution to the streetscape of Springfield Gardens, while the modest increase in residential density will support the creation of a community facility use to benefit the local neighborhood. I would like to see a healthcare center in this space to address the critical gaps in coverage that my district faces, and I'm grateful for the developer's commitment to a good faith effort in pursuit of this goal. I am extremely proud and grateful for the engagement we saw on this item from all stakeholders. I'd like to thank the assorted residents of Springfield Gardens for their input and leadership on behalf of their neighbors. This process has been a lengthy one, but one that has allowed those who are generally engaged in their community boards and civics, as well as those who are not engaged, to be able to be a voice in the decision-making process. I would also like to thank the applicant, Mr. Dharminder Singh, and the extended development team led by Richard Lobel, who repeatedly came to the table to compromise and find a project that reflects the community's perspective. Thanks also to the land use team, James Catone, Brian Paul, and Jeff Campagna, as well as Alex Hunter from my staff, for all of their hard work on this item. I encourage my colleagues to vote aye. Thank you.
Thank you, Majority Whip. We will also vote to approve pre-consider LUs 48 and 49 for the 35-01 Vernon Boulevard rezoning proposal relating to property in Councilmember Wan's district in Queens. This proposal will rezone the existing R5 to an M1-4/R7A and establish a special mixed-use district, as well as establish an MIH program area utilizing option 1. Councilmember Wan is in support of this proposal. Finally, we will also vote to approve pre-considered LU 47 for the 2300 Crosby Avenue rezoning proposal relating to property in Councilmember Brandon's district in Brooklyn. This proposal would map a C2-4 overlay within the existing R6 district. Councilmember Brandon is in support of this proposal. Members of the subcommittee who have questions or remarks about today's item should use the raise hand button now. Council will announce in the order that the hands are raised. Council, are there any members are there any council member with questions or remarks at this time?
I see that Councilmember Mealy has her hand up.
Councilmember Mealy.
Good morning, everyone. I know I'm not on this committee. I would like to ask Councilmember Ressler District, all those store owners, did they have an opportunity to come back in those new developments, or any of the homeowners who was living there, did they get an option to come back instead of moving outside the district?
Thank you, as always, Councilmember Mealy. I really appreciate your thoughtfulness and concern. So the site that we are recommending for approval is at 100 Lee, did not have previous tenants. It was a vacant site. and they've begun construction. As of right, they could have built about 5 stories. And with the approval today, will allow them to go up to 8. And now, as a result of the approval today, there will also be affordable housing on site because it will be subject to mandatory inclusionary housing. The site across the street that we're recommending for that we're not including in the approved rezoning area includes the 11 small businesses. So we are avoiding their displacement and making sure that they can continue to stay and operate. We did not hear from the owner of 100 Lee during this process to know if they had any plans to sustain the small businesses coming back. And so as a result, we don't think it's a risk we're taking. Thank you.
Thank you. I now call for a vote to approve preconsidered LUs 47 relating to the 2300 Crosby Avenue rezoning proposal and preconsiders LU 48 and 49 relating to the 35-01 Vernon Boulevard rezoning proposal. To approve with modification I have described, preconsiders LUs 39 relating to the 146-93 Guy R. Brewer rezoning proposal, and preconsiders LUs 41 and 42 relating to the 103 Lee Avenue rezoning proposal, and to file preconsiders LUs 40 also relating to the 146-93 Guy R. Brewer Boulevard rezoning. Council, please call the roll.
Chair Riley,
I don't know.
Councilmember Moya, Councilmember Moya, I think you were muted. Councilmember Abreu, moving on, I'll call back on Councilmember Moya.
Sorry about that. I vote aye.
Thank you, Councilmember Moya. Councilmember Abreu,
I don't know.
Councilmember Botter,
I don't know.
Councilmember Hanks,
I don't know.
Councilmember Schulman,
I don't know.
and Councilmember Carr. Councilmember Carr, are you there? Looks like we lost them, Chair. So the vote now stand at 6 in the affirmative, no negatives, no abstentions. And we can leave the vote open.
Thank you, Council. To continue with today's meeting, I will now open the public hearing on LUs 58 and 59 relating to the 1930 AD Avenue rezoning proposal in my district in the Bronx. The application seeks a zoning map amendment to rezone an existing R4 to an R6B and a relating zoning text amendment to establish an MIH program area. For anyone wishing to testify on this item, if you have not already done so, you must register, and you may do that now by visiting the council's website at council.nyc.gov/land use. Council, can you please call the first panel for this item?
Yes, the first panel for this item is Richard Lobel, Amanda Iannotti, Michael Gilbert, Ron Gilbert, S. Alessandro, Singh Dalbir, Kevin Williams, and Ida Clark Ramsey. Richard, did I catch everyone?
You did.
Okay.
I note that Kevin Williams I didn't believe he's not present.
Okay, thank you. So all that is a panel chair minus Kevin Williams.
Council, can you please administer the affirmation?
Sure. Applicants, can you please raise your right hand? And I will call on you individually to answer the following question. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before the subcommittee and in your answer to all council member questions? Richard Lobel?
I do.
Amanda Iannotti?
I do.
Ida Clark Ramsey? Sorry, I didn't catch that. Ida, are you there? Okay, thank you. As Alessandro?
I do.
And Michael Gilbert?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. For the viewing public, if you need an accessible version of this presentation, please send an email request to land use testimony at council.nyc.gov. And now the applicant team may begin. Panelists, before you begin, I just ask that you please reinstate your name and organization for the record. You may begin.
Chair Riley, once again, Richard Lobel of Sheldon Lobel PC for the applicant team. We're pleased to be here today to present the 1930 80 Avenue rezoning, which will provide a much needed daycare facility to the local area. I'm going to proceed with a brief presentation, and then the entire applicant team is available to answer any questions. Please load the presentation. So while the presentation is loading, once again, we're here for the 1930 80 Avenue rezoning.
Our presentation. Yeah. With this.
Okay. To go into a brief site history background while the presentation loads. In 1963, the original building on this site was built as a manufacturing facility, and it was proposed to be altered in 1987. Next slide. That alteration would have provided a small enlargement on the eastern portion of the site. However, between the years of 1987 and 1995, it was enlarged without the benefit of approved plans and materials. And in 1995, a violation issued for the fact that the building was built out full to the lot line on 2 stories. The DOB violation persisted, and in 2017, the applicants obtained the property that seek to rezone the property in accordance with the following presentation. So the next page has a summary of what we're trying to do, which is to rezone 5 lots, one of which is the applicant's site, from the existing R4 district to an R6B district, which would permit the use of the site as a use group 3 community facility daycare for St. Gemwells, as Dr. Clark Ramsey is on the line with us and can discuss at the chair and council's discretion. In addition to this rezoning to R6B, there would also be a mandatory inclusionary housing text amendment to require that any redevelopment of the site or any of the sites included with the rezoning area would provide affordable housing. However, it is the applicant's current intent to have a daycare facility at the site. Next slide. So again, the proposed rezoning will facilitate the alteration, legalization, development of the 2-story building as a use group 3 community facility daycare center. What the R6B will do will be to facilitate the legalization of this existing non-complying building. The building is currently non-complying with regards to front yard, side yard, and lot coverage based on community facility bulk regulations. And the existing 14,000, approximately 264 square foot building would remain. Importantly, for the council to note, the proposal here from an R4 to an R6B does not change the underlying bulk in terms of square footage of the building. Both the R4 and the R6B would permit the 14,200 square foot building at the site. The difference here is that the R6B would legalize these yard conditions and coverage conditions. So again, it's a wonderful rezoning from our point of view, because what this will allow is for St. Gemwell Group Family Daycare to occupy the site. This is a beloved local institution which has been serving the Fordham Bronx Park community for over 17 years and will allow them to extend their services to this site. Next slide. You can see in the circled area, the area of the rezoning, which is more directly focused on the next slide, the tax map, which demonstrates the R6B. Can you load the next slide, please? The R6B and the duration of that R6B. The site itself is roughly 7,000 square feet, just short of 100 feet wide. In addition, these adjacent sites would be included within the rezoning area. Next slide. So regardless of the applicant's plan to have a daycare facility at the site, an R6B zoning would be merited here regardless, given the fact that you have a wide street and 80 Avenue here at 80 feet wide. You also have the fact that there is an R6 district to the east of the property across the inland thruway. This is an area where similar types of zoning and building types are not unknown. So there is there's a strong preference in this area in terms of land use, which would justify the R6B. Here, however, what you see is what you get, and the building, as we will discuss in the plans, would remain largely unchanged. In fact, a portion of the roof of the second story would actually be reduced in order to legalize lot coverage at the site. Next slide. So the next few slides have pictures of the site. You can see in the foreground several shots of the existing facility. Again, a fairly standard two-story institutionalized building. So if you want to just page through the next few pages, you can just see the site. Again, we're looking forward to being able to redevelop the site in terms of beautifying the site, the outside of the building, et cetera. And I think to conclude the presentation, we would look to two slides. The first would be the next slide. The next slide shows the sum of the work that would be going on this building, which is, if you look in the lower left slide, you see a portion that says two-story. That's an existing two-story portion that's at 25 feet tall. And in order to comply with lot coverage regulations, that ceiling would be reduced by 2 feet to be 23 feet, which would come in under permitted obstructions within the proposed R6B. So the only change to this building would be to lower that corner by 2 feet, after which point we would be able to legally occupy the building with a community facility use and to proceed to a certificate of occupancy. If you want to page through the rest of the slides, you will see typical floor plans and layouts for a classroom and administrative area for St. Gemuel's. And then finally, I would just note, if you want to go to the last slide. So the last slide demonstrates that Michael and Ron have done previous developments in terms of daycare centers. Is that the maybe? Well, there we go. And so, including in the Bronx. And so, the external facade of the building would be reconfigured so as to provide an inviting environment for young kids and professionals who will be attending the premises and using it as a daycare facility. So I think in conclusion, we're hopeful that the council and Chair Riley, in whose district the building is, will be able to support the decisions of the Bronx Borough President and importantly Community Board 12, who basically demonstrated that through their votes that quality daycare and accessible daycare is important for residents of the area. And we're excited to proceed with the project. And with that, the entire applicant team is happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Richard. So I did speak with my community board and they did express that concern that potentially for the project site to be redeveloped as a non-school function in the future is still an issue. Having a daycare is very important and childcare is very important in the community. But I do think having that potential project site turn it into a non-school function would be a huge issue within that community, which is my community within the valley of my district. That's what we call it in the district, 12, the valley. What can you do to kind of address that concern for me personally, because it's a few blocks away from me and my community's concern about this issue?
Thank you, Chair. So at the hearings, particularly the community board hearings, we were presented with the discussion around the valley and the sensitivity there to height. And so it was clear that the area did appreciate St. Gemuel's and wanted the application to proceed, but did not want a potentially reconfigured building at the site, which would permit under the R6B a total of 5 stories. So the discussion at the time was whether or not the applicant would willingly enter into a restrictive declaration to be recorded against the site, which would cap the height of that building. And so the discussion was around height because they didn't want a really tall building there. So I think what we settled on, and we exchanged documentation at the time and are happy to enter that into the record going forward. But basically, to the extent that we would be limited to 3 stories, such that we wouldn't exceed the height of any of the buildings on the block, that would be the preference of the applicant, which would enable us to stay within the height limits of the current R4, but also to the extent that, let's say in 20 or 30 years, there was no need for daycare here anymore, they would be able to redevelop with a residential building, which could go up to that 3 stories in height. So again, I think we're very appreciative of the discussion of the community board on this. And as a solution to that issue, that was proposals that was on the floor.
Thank you. And is there a contract now for the daycare provider for this currently proposed project?
There is. I would be happy to introduce Dr. Clark Ramsey as well as the Gilberts to who can discuss the nature of that relationship.
So we have a preliminary agreement with the school to operate there. We have not drawn the formal lease at this time because we didn't have something that we could legally rent them in order to operate. But it is every intention to move forward with lease once this rezoning is done. Dr.
So,
Clark,
Mike, I do have a question. So with the past daycares that you have, what were like the leases that you would kind of negotiate with them?
as far as term, between 5 and 10 years.
5 to 10 years. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, because the situations change. We've had daycare operators who were no longer viable for and able to get city programs. So it no longer work for their use. So we went up replacing them with someone who was able to, like the one that was pictured in Middle Village. The operator was no longer able to get universal pre-K. The new operator who took over is doing great there and serving the community. And the community is absolutely ecstatic, and the tenant, frankly, is happier than they could have ever been, because they didn't expect to have full capacity day one. But the community was happy, and I mean that's and we've had local operators with multiple locations, and we have one site right now with the city actually as a tenant, operating as UPK over on Webster Avenue in the Bronx.
Okay. Can you please expand on the land use rationale for including the 3 non-development lots in this rezoning from the R4 to R6B?
Richard, could you explain that?
Yeah, can you just expand on that, Richard, for me?
Richard?
Thank you. I was unable to unmute. Okay, so thank you for that, Chair. The land use rationale is as follows. So when we discussed this with city planning, the applicant is responsible for setting forth a land use rationale as to why not only the proposed development site would be included, but potentially other sites. So in the 3 adjacent sites on this block, you've got a condition where you've got 80 Avenue as a wide street at 80 feet wide. And so when we look to potential rezonings and potential upzonings, we look to whether or not there's good access to the site in terms of a wide street. That exists here. The other thing to note is that all 3 properties exist with residential square footage, which exceeds what would be permitted under the R4, but does not violate the R6B regulation. So each of those buildings would become complying in the R6B. So another hallmark of a land use rationale, of a meritorious rationale, is if the rezoning would essentially create address and cure non-compliant conditions. So we understand the sensitivity to including other properties in the rezoning. And so these properties themselves, when you look to the nature of the construction here, and particularly the fact that they are overbuilt under current law, it's unlikely that any of them would redevelop. But we are sympathetic with the opinions as have been expressed by certain community stakeholders who want them excluded from the rezoning, but those are the valid reasons why we did include them. We have no interest in those sites. It was merely a matter of the applicant's land use rationale.
Thank you. And lastly, what is the potential community benefit of pursuing this action, Richard?
It's a good question. And first of all, having been before CB12 many times and having engaged in multiple conversations around this application, I'd say that there was a really sincere conversation around this. And I know Dr. Clark Ramsey is on the call with us. I'd actually be happy, Chair, if she would say a few words, because I honestly think that the value of having St. Gemuel's at this site and the reliance of the community on a local daycare provider who is trusted and who has been literally raising children in this community for years. I really think that that's one of the most important community benefits that was expressed at the hearings. And I'd also say that the opportunity to take this existing building, which has basically been illegal since 1987, and to bring it into compliance would be a good thing. But may Dr. Clark Ramsey speak for a moment?
Yes. Council, is Dr. Clark sworn in? Dr.
Sorry,
Clark?
Chair. What was the question? Sorry, apologies.
Is Dr. Clark on? Dr. Clark?
Let me check. I thought she was on. Dr. Clark, are you there? Yeah. And she's unmuted. We can hear you now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Clark, we can't hear you.
We heard you for a second and then the audio was very faint. Do you want to try again?
We still can't hear you, Dr. Clark. No, we still can't hear you.
I will tell you, Chair, while unsure about Dr. Clark's audio, but I will tell you that that St. Gemuel's has other locations in the area. Dr. Clark Ramsey was recognized by the community board as being a valued member and stakeholder in the community. And so I'd say with regards to community benefits, the most important one was to be able to provide high quality daycare to members and residents in the Valley.
I still would like to visit a site just so I can see for myself. So if we could set that up, I would truly appreciate that. I have no more questions. I now invite my colleagues to ask any questions. If you have any questions for this applicant panel, please use the raise hand function, and the council will call on you. Council, are there any council member with questions?
No council members with questions at this time, Chair.
There being no further questions, the applicant panel is excused. Council, are there any members of the public who wish to testify on 1930 80 Avenue proposal?
Give me just 1 second, Chair, to confirm, but I believe there are no witnesses here.
No problem.
No members of the public, I'm confirming. You can go ahead and close the hearing.
There being no other members of the public who wish to testify on LUs 58 and 59 relating to the 1930 80 Avenue rezoning proposal, the public hearing is now closed and the items are laid over. Now, I will now open the public hearing on the pre-considered LUs 53 through 57.
Chair, before we continue, I think we have a council member Carr and Chair Lewis here.
I'm so sorry. I got excited real quick. All right.
We can take their votes if they're ready.
Yes,
sorry.
I'd like to acknowledge Councilmember Carr and Chair Lewis and Chair Salamanca, who just joined us.
Continuing the vote for the land use items or subcommittee land use items, as the chair called them earlier. Chair Lewis?
Yes.
Thank you. And Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
The final vote is 8 in the affirmative, no negatives, no abstentions. The items are approved and will be referred to the full land use committee.
Thank you, Council. I will now open the public hearing on pre-considered LUs 53 through 57 relating to the 145 Museum of Civil Rights rezoning proposal in Councilmember Richardson Jordan's district in Manhattan. In Harlem, excuse me. This application seeks a zoning map amendment to rezone existing R7-2/C1-4 and C8-3 districts to a C4-6 district and related zoning text amendment to establish an MIH program area, and 3 zoning special permits to modify regulations for height and setback, use and signage, and residential parking to facilitate a new mixed-use development. For anyone wishing to testify on this item, if you have not already done so, you must register online, and you may do that now by visiting council's website at council.nyc.gov/land use. Once again, that's council.nyc.gov/land use. And I would now like to allow Councilmember Richardson Jordan to give any remarks regarding this project. Councilmember Richardson Jordan, the floor is yours.
Yes, hi. Thank you for allowing me this time to speak about this terrible project that is going to be a displacement to my community. I've been very vocal against this project, but I have not been alone. The community has been standing against this project all along the way. It was voted down no with no conditions at the local community board, and you will get to hear some public testimony today from community members. I really urge my colleagues to please stay and listen to the community. This is our role as government, to serve the people and not special interests and not corporate greed. There are a few elements to this project that I particularly want to highlight, and to those who may not know in terms of our community as well. Our district has a higher portion of renters than the city average, and half of them are rent burdened. 67% of renters in the district pay less than $1,500 in rent, and the median rent is $1,125. 1/3 of the households in the district make less than $25,000 a year. And I want to be clear, there are only 27 units, previously none, but an 11th hour proposal where they threw in some breadcrumbs, there is now 27 units for 1/3 of the people in our district. This is absolutely a slap in the face in a project that has 915 units. Half the households in the district make less than $49,000. There are only 91 units, again, out of 915 that would accommodate this level of Harlemites. And, you know, if I might be so generous, there are some Harlemites, very few, approximately 1 in 10, who can afford higher AMI levels, the MIH defined affordability, and in some cases, market rate. So all in all, we're looking at a project that 2 out of every 10 Harlemites could feasibly hope to live in. And all of this for a massive upzoning. We are an area that has experienced extreme displacement. We lost over 10,000 Black residents of Harlem in the last census. We lost all income brackets, particularly low income, those making $20,000 to $30,000 a year, those making $30,000 to $40,000 a year. This is the displacement that we're fighting in our community. We are the last Black community on the island of Manhattan, and we need to take a stand. So if I sound, you know, angry about this, it's because I am. There have been multiple attempts to reach out and have an open meeting with this developer, which have been turned down. They do not want to work in and with community on this project. And I am asking that they pull the proposal. This is something I've asked all along the way, that they pull the proposal, return to the table, do something that is for community if we are going to have such a massive upzoning. It is unacceptable to have something so massive without community input and with so much community disapproval. And I urge my colleagues to vote this down.
Yes, Karen.
Thanks, Councilmember Richardson Jordan. Council, can you please call the first panel for this item?
Yes, Chair. The panel for this item is Greg Pasquarelli, Tristan Nadal, Bruce Teitelbaum, Riley McPhee, Roberto Otero, Valerie Campbell, Paul Silver, Lynn Doe, and Jennifer Morris. And applicants, let me know if I missed any of you.
No, I think that's everybody.
Okay, so can you please raise your right hand and I will call on you, each of you, it's individually, to answer the following questions. Sorry, Chair, I went ahead and I'm going to call on them on the oath.
Go ahead.
Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before the subcommittee and in your answer to all council member questions. And I will call on the ones that I mentioned that are actually in the hearing right now. So starting with Tristan Nadal.
Yes.
Riley McPhee.
Yes.
Jennifer Morris.
Yes.
Valerie Campbell.
Yes.
And finally, Roberto Otero.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. For the viewing public, if you need an accessible version of this presentation, please send an email request to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. And now the applicant team may begin. Panelists, as you begin, I just ask that you please reinstate your name and organization for the record. You may begin.
Thank you. Tristan Nadal here representing the sponsor. And thanks everybody for joining us today. 5 or 6 years ago, the sponsor purchased an approximately 70,000 square foot, partially vacant commercial lot along 144th and 145th Street in Central Harlem, with the intention of developing it as of right, which includes market rate residential and self-storage. Instead, it was decided for a variety of reasons to pursue a re-entitlement and upzoning of the property, which led us to the opportunity here today to share with you a plan we feel is distinctive and impactful. So thanks again for your consideration and time. We believe our 145 project is not only right for Harlem, but has significantly citywide implications that merit this body's support. I'm joined today, as mentioned, by our architect from Shop Architects, Roberto Otero, Land Use Council, Valerie Campbell from Kramer Levin, who will take you through the particulars of the project, and I'll close by telling you about some of the community benefits. First, I just wanted to set the stage a bit. Over the past several years, and especially the last few months, we've spent a lot of time conferring with and listening to community residents, elected officials, leaders, and other stakeholders in the neighborhood, which has led us to revise our plan in some very significant ways here. Some may think we've fallen short, but we feel we've meaningfully changed our plan in attempts to meet the needs and concerns that have been expressed to us as best we can. High level, we're proposing to convert a partially vacant commercial lot, which now houses, among other things, a gas station, liquor store, and 0 residential housing, into a forward-thinking, resilient, and sustainable development that serves the needs of existing Harlem residents and hopefully can help reverse years of disinvestment and redlining. We're proposing to build over 900 homes, 40% of which would be made affordable to a cross spectrum of folks, including union members, seniors, and others. That's an increase of about 150 affordable homes from what we originally proposed. Given the lack of available rental units really everywhere in the city, but especially in Manhattan, combined with rising interest rates, supply chain issues, and the rest, I think we know the residential market rate is only going to continue to tighten, and hardworking New Yorkers are going to find it harder and harder to find nice homes that they can afford. So there's really no more urgent issue that affects every corner of the city than shortage of housing. And this project's success or failure will mean a great deal, not only for Harlem, but for other similar neighborhoods in the city. So we think 145 will help. It's not going to solve the problem by itself, but its impact will be significant. Importantly, too, 145 will create New York City's first geothermal green energy district to address climate change and environmental injustice, and could help set a citywide trend in that effect. It'll create jobs, youth internships, career training, economic development, and revitalize an important area in Central Harlem, which will provide amenities and services that other communities take for granted. We feel it's a great example of a new paradigm of inclusive and sustainable development for neighborhoods that have endured years of disinvestment. It's a $500 million plus private investment in a community that's going to create over 900 new homes, 370 affordable units, New York City's first green energy district, thousands of jobs, access to first-rate healthcare, opportunities for minority and local residents, and space for local CBOs. We believe it's worthy of your support on the merits, and that's what we're respectfully asking from you today. And just to address a couple of the council members' comments, we have diligently been reaching out to meet with Councilman Richardson Jordan to discuss this revised proposal, seeking her feedback, and we have not been able to do so, but we continue to want to work with the council member on this proposal that we think is now responsive and addressing many of the needs of the neighborhood, which we'll get into now as I'll hand it off to Roberto.
Thank you, Tristan. If we can go to the next slide, we can start walking you through the project as it has advanced. Next one, please. As you can see, the location of the project is in the intersection of two wide streets, 145th Street and Lennox Avenue, Malcolm Boulevard. In the next one, we can see these existing conditions, as has been noted. Currently, it's at 100% commercial and community facility use with no residential housing on site. It has low density, one-story buildings overall with community facility, National Action Network headquarters, and the Timbuktu Islamic Center located on site, as well as some retail, variety of restaurants, 99-cent stores, laundromat, gas station, a vacant gas stations, and 2 vacant lots. Next one, please. In terms of the proposed design, in the next slide, please, we will see the CPC approved design, which had, as noted here, the 865,000 square foot development with the housing as noted here, the commercial use of office, as well as the community facility use of 40,000 of the museum, a tower top event space, the new headquarters for the National Action Network, as well as ground floor retail of about 42,000 square feet, and below grade parking. Going on to the next one, we'll show you here modified development. As we advanced through the public process and in response to community feedback, the development was modified and is reflected in this image. It was mutually agreed with the museum that accommodating additional affordable housing was more important for the community, and the museum decided to find an alternate location. In response to that, additional housing has been integrated into the project, as noted here, rising to almost 370 affordable units as broken up here, and we'll get into further detail in the next slides. The design retains its key elements, which is, of course, a podium, the graphs along 145th and Lennox, and the 2 towers that work within the scale and morphology of the context with the similar multifamily residential towers in the area, and the facade remains an elegant and efficient high-performance enclosure system that meets the higher sustainability and comfort needs of the future. In this diagram, you'll see how the program is distributed, as noted with commercial areas in blue, the event space at the top of the 145th tower, the retail at grade in red, the community office services as noted here in purple, and the 2 different types of residential noted in both orange and yellow that are the majority of the area of the project. Next slide, please. We will go into the summary of the changes. As noted previously, there is no Museum of Civil Rights in the project anymore. The National Action Network continues and remains. Additional housing, as noted here, has been included, and community facility offices, etc. Area changes as noted here, and we can go into further detail. Next slide, please. We can see a clear summary of the residential comparison, the increase in the number of units, and more importantly, the substantial increase in the affordable units in the different categories as noted here. MIH, moderate income, very and extremely low income, and family units have also increased. Next. And of course, the increased affordability units is an important addition, both the low income housing and the moderate income housing as noted here in detail, and how it has been integrated into the design seamlessly. Next. The event space at the top of the 145th tower remains, which will provide access for community programming and event space with amazing views that leverages the unique location of the site. Next, I think I will hand it over to Valerie now to go through the proposed zoning actions. Thank you for.
Sure. Thank you very much. My name is Valerie Campbell. I'm a partner at Kramer Levin, and we're land use counsel to the owner. Next slide. So the project requires a number of land use actions, including a rezoning from the existing C83 and R72 C14 zoning districts to a uniform C46 zoning district. Text amendments to map the project in a mandatory inclusionary housing area and to modify a provision of section 74744B, which will allow the Beacon Special Event Space in Tower 1 to be located above the residential units. It also requires several special permits and a certification, which I will describe in more detail. The proposed special permits are available because the development qualifies as a large-scale general development, and as such, zoning modifications are available to provide some design flexibility and create a better site plan than would be possible as of right. Next slide. The rezoning of the site will make the zoning more consistent with the predominant mixed-use context of the surrounding neighborhoods. The slide shows the existing zoning on the left and the proposed zoning on the right. The existing C83 zoning is an outmoded zoning designation designed for automotive and heavy commercial uses. It is now most often used to develop self-storage facilities that do not contribute to the streetscape or provide meaningful employment. The existing zoning also does not require the provision of affordable housing or in fact allow for any housing at all. The rezoning will increase the overall permitted density of the project area from 6.5 FAR to 12 FAR. The higher density is appropriate on this large site, which is located at the intersection of two major wide streets and well served by public transit. The rezoning makes the affordable housing possible because it permits the development of a critical mass of new market rate development required to cross-subsidize the affordable units. This site does have to be rezoned to be redeveloped with any affordable housing. And the proposed rezoning provides a higher yield of the affordable units than a lower density rezoning would, and allows for a mix of uses, including the not-for-profit office space and the health facility. Next slide. This slide shows the overall massing and the distribution of uses that results from the rezoning and the special permits. Each building has a podium with a tower above, except for building 2, which is a lower scale building. Tower 1 has the Beacon Special Event Space at the top, which will be a uniquely attractive venue because of the extraordinary views it will provide. We are also asking for 2 zoning text amendments. The first is the MIH designation that will produce over 200 units of affordable housing through the MIH program. And as Roberto noted, there's an additional 160 units of affordable housing proposed. The second text amendment is an amendment that allows the Beacon space to be located over a floor with residential units, provided that an acoustical barrier is provided. Next slide. Now, special permits. We need a special permit to modify the height and setback regulations for Tower 1 because the Beacon Special Event Space is located in an area of the tower that penetrates the sky exposure plane. Except for the location of the Beacon space, Tower 1 would otherwise comply with the applicable setback and coverage regulations. The special event space also needs a special permit so it can be located over a floor containing dwelling units and for its ground floor lobby to be located within 50 feet of the street wall. The height and setback and location of use waivers make the Beacon Special Event Space possible. We think that it will serve the community by providing a unique venue in Central Harlem that will keep local dollars in the community and bring outside events to the facility. We are also asking for a special permit to reduce the required parking for the market rate residential units. The proposed reduction is from 40% of the units to 20% of the units. This means that approximately 124 parking spaces would be provided in the project. We think this will meet the needs of the estimated 15% of the residential unit occupants who will own cars. The area is also well served by off-street parking facilities and has good access to mass transit. The parking reduction also allows for more retail space to be provided at grade. Now that the museum is no longer part of the project, we are not requesting any signage waivers for this use, and we are also not requesting a waiver of the retail continuity requirement, which was a certification that was necessary because of the museum frontage. Next slide. Okay, the project also requires a certification to allow a curb cut on a wide street and an additional curb cut on a narrow street. That's at West 144th Street. The curb cut on West 145th will be used for loading, and there will be 2 curb cuts on 144th to access both loading and the parking, the required accessory parking. The curb cut will ensure that there are the correct number of loading bays for retail uses. It will minimize trucking activity on West 144th Street, and it will allow for garage access. Next. I think we are now moving on to the section. Tristan, are you taking this section or is Bruce?
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, to close, I just wanted to walk through some of the aspects of the project, we think will be beneficial to the community. Next. As I mentioned at the top, this project is really responding to a local and citywide housing crisis. Rents now far exceed pre-pandemic peaks, and supply is hundreds of thousands of units behind. We've heard feedback from folks in and out of the community about the need for more housing and at various income levels. So our new plan tries to address that by creating about a third of all the housing built in this district over the past decade, and 5 times more affordable housing than MIH has produced since its inception in the district, for a total of about 370 regulated units. The range in income bands of populations that we're hitting represents a diversity of incomes in the district and the city at large, creating a place where residents of all types can live in one building together. And just to address who this is targeting, about 300 of these units are at 60% of AMI or below, for an average of. And according to the census data, that is affordable to over 50% of folks in this district. So we think, which is about 30,000 households. So we think this is addressing a lot of the need in the neighborhood, including those in moderate income levels who want to stay in the neighborhood. And we've also increased the amount of family size units in response to feedback we've received to over 30% of the total, which is 50% more than a project like this would typically have. Next. Environmental sustainability is really a major focus of its development. We're creating a unique green energy program based on geothermal technology that'll reduce the amount of carbon created from the building dramatically. This basically means cleaner air, better health for everyone in and around the project, especially in an area that suffers from the highest rate of chronic respiratory disease in Manhattan. We're also working really hard to create the city's first district-wide green energy improvement district that would provide cleaner, safer, more comfortable heating and cooling services to other buildings in the neighborhood that would be able to tie into the system for no charge. This is something we think can be replicated throughout the city and responds to citywide calls for action combating climate change. Next. This development is projected to create over 1,150 jobs, including 550 permanent jobs in things like construction, retail, office, building services, engineering, and more. We're working with a lot of local partners like Positive Workforce, 100 Black Men, Pathways to Apprenticeship, and have made agreements with union groups like Local 79, 32EJ to make sure these jobs are focused on hiring local residents of Community Board 10, and that those jobs will come with years of professional training to ensure that they really lead to full-time careers. Next. We've also created several programs, including an internship program that places local students, young workers in positions of various professionals that are on the project. We have a NYSERDA funded Green Jobs Opportunity Workshop Series to educate local residents about what is the fastest growing sector in the New York State economy, green jobs, and one that's really woefully underrepresented by both minority and women. We also have a mentorship program with Mission Society, a local nonprofit that we've been running since March, that brings professionals of all kinds into Zooms, classrooms with high school students for weekly seminars, exposing them to different high achieving professions and career paths. Next. We've also created a community retail empowerment initiative, which is really a program that allocates a percentage of the retail space exclusively for local and MWBE businesses and provides them discounted rent for local entrepreneurs and limits the size and square footage of spaces to limit big box. Next. And we really want to make 145 a hub of activity in the neighborhood that's usable to a wide swath of people. So we've created a CBO and nonprofit opportunity hub that'll offer space to local community groups at reduced rents. Thus far, we've reached agreements with the National Action Network, Pathways to Apprenticeship, Palante, which is a local tenant advocacy group, and we're in advanced discussions with others, including a nonprofit healthcare provider for ambulatory care and culinary arts and training center. And we're also making multi-million-dollar improvement to the Charles Young Playground, which is located across the street. Next. So in sum, we feel this plan is really responsive to the needs of the Harlem community and other similar communities across the city. This would really be an unprecedented private investment in this area of Harlem, and it's historically been neglected by both public and private institutions alike. We think this development model can create a paradigm for future rezoning projects in similar districts and create sustainable, affordable housing, community spaces, jobs, and economic opportunities for local residents. So we thank you all for listening, and I'll give it back to Chair.
Thank you so much. And I'm just going to ask a couple of questions to the applicant team that I'm going to turn over to Councilmember Richardson Jordan for her questions. You may have covered some of my questions in the presentation, but I just would like to ask them just so you could confirm them for the record. The height and density of the project at this location has raised concerns throughout the ULURP, from the community board to the borough president to city planning commissions, with requests to scale the development down to be more contextual with the surrounding neighborhood. How are you addressing these concerns?
So to address the height, this original plan started out about 150 feet, I think, higher than the plan we had. We listened to folks over the years to bring it down to the current level and even out the height of the buildings and present them more conceptually with buildings in the neighborhood. Esplanade Gardens is a similar number of stories, and some of the other large residential communities in the area. We believe it is contextual on a site that is at the intersection of two large streets on top of a train station. So if there were a place for density, we believe this is appropriate. We also have addressed some of the concerns about congestion, which we felt largely were stemming from the inclusion of the museum, which may create a large number of tourists. We've obviously changed that use and also addressed additional affordable housing while doing that. So we have tried to be responsive to that. We believe the density we have now is warranted and needed to create the amount of community benefits and affordable housing being created here.
How did you come to the decision to add the senior housing component to the project? Is that addressing a specific community need?
Yeah, it is something that we've heard a lot about as a need in the area. It's an aging population. So it was our hope to target particularly vulnerable seniors in the area at very and extremely low incomes.
Can you explain how the updated affordability compares to what was previously proposed in terms of both numbers of units and levels of affordability?
Sure. I think we could maybe bring up that slide. I don't know if, who's controlling, but I think maybe around slide 18 or so we had a comparison. Keep going. Sorry, keep going up. A little bit, yeah, right there. Yeah, so overall affordability increased from 25 to 40%. The average at 60% AMI is about the same, decreased slightly just because the number of non-senior units decreased slightly. We added 90 very and extremely low income units that we expect to be targeted towards seniors. That'll be at less than 50% AMI down to 30% AMI for formerly homeless. And then 70 moderate income, which we've really done in Congress with the various union partners we're working with, who strongly requested these moderate income units for their constituents who, you know, a lot of developments really target only market rate and very low income. And a lot of their constituents are kind of in the middle. And so that's why we worked with them at their behest to add this additional slot of moderate income units, which you can see here is 70 units in the proposal.
Can you describe the smaller scale as of right alternative development scenario identified in the EIS in terms of bulk and uses? And is this a legitimate alternative to what is being proposed or just a hypothetical?
Valerie, do you want to address that one?
Well, the as of right did not include any housing because it can't. It did include permitted community facility and retail uses, and we tried to have it be conservative for the purposes of the environmental analysis.
Yeah.
Thank you. There are concerns from the community about a number of transportation issues, including subways and bus capacity, traffic, and street safety that will be impacted by bringing almost 1,000 new units to this neighborhood. We understand that the environmental review process deemed that these impacts to the below the CEQR threshold, but we also know that the project of this scale undoubtedly brings thousands of new residents and thousands of new trips on transit and by car and foot that inevitably strain or finite system, especially when we look at impacts at the scales of the broader community that includes other large developments being built at the same time, like the Bronx Point just across the river. What are some ways you plan to address these transportation concerns?
So, as you noted, no exceedances were found through the EIS process, either at the station or long haul, as far as the subway goes, and same for pedestrian. You know, we are cognizant of those concerns. We did reach out to MTA. They recently did a renovation of that station, and the actual rates of use are well within line of the rest of the city and actually below. So we think there is capacity for additional density here. We also expect to be talking with DOT about potential improvements to the bus system. And we had previously offered discussions with other local housing communities about a private bus system that might help local transit within the neighborhood.
I'm going to ask one last question, then I'll pass it over to Councilmember Richardson Jordan. Do you have an agreement with existing commercial tenant on the property, and will they have will they have a guaranteed right to return? And if so, will you guarantee them below market commercial rent?
So we have reached agreement, as I mentioned, with the National Action Network to return to the site. We are in advanced discussions as well with Sweet Mama to return to the site. We have reached out to all other tenants at the site and discussed with them what their needs and requirements and requests are, and whether they want to come back, whether they'd like to move somewhere else, which we've helped them do at our own cost. For example, the Timbuktu Center would like to buy their own townhouse for their constituency. And we've actually gone ahead, because of some of the Sharia law issues they have, agreed to purchase a townhouse for them and finance it so that they can continue to operate in the neighborhood in the fashion that they'd like. So to answer your question, we have been proactive, talking to all the existing tenants and working with them on what best fits their plans for the future.
Thank you. I would like to pass it over, yield my time to Councilman Richardson Jordan to ask her questions. Councilman Richardson Jordan, the floor is yours.
Starting time.
So I would like to start by just clarifying a couple things, because especially for those who are under oath, we should be telling the truth. There was an as of right proposal that did involve making housing. It was 44 units of market rate housing. I also want to say that Palante was mentioned. Palante is not in favor of the project. They were simply asked that if they were given space, would they take it? And there is no community org that would not take space if it was given. I also would like to clarify that even with the revised proposal and these new 11th hour breadcrumbs, that we're moving from a scenario where 1 in 10 Harlemites could afford to live there to 2 in 10 of being able to afford to live there. So we still have 8 out of 10 Harlemites that cannot live here. So those are a few things I just do want to clarify, because again, we should be telling the truth. Question, and please tell the truth, when was this new plan finalized and when was it released? And as we were only notified just yesterday, and not by you, when was my office and I contacted?
I think you know, and we have much email correspondence between us. And
yes, but when was this new plan finalized and released?
The new plan was released publicly this morning, but we had been working on it and reached out to your office, I think, many times, either through us or intermediaries or union partners of ours, to try to set up a meeting to let you know about the plan as much as we could, and hopefully solicit your feedback for it.
And where,
we weren't able to get a meeting.
Yeah, well, no, again, let's tell the truth. What I said is that you are unable to get a private meeting. I am not privately meeting with developers, and that we could have a meeting, but there were members of my housing task force that needed to be invited to the meeting, and you denied that. So let's be clear about, let's tell the truth again. There was not a refusal. There was not a refusal on the meeting. There was a refusal on a private meeting with just me alone.
Correct.
But that being said, can you comment on, since there wasn't any public input because you wouldn't meet in community with me, can you comment on where and how you have gotten community input other than where it's legally required?
Over the last 5 years that we've been working on this project, we've met with every elected official, with many local stakeholders over 5 years and more, the community board many times, even recently.
The community board voted down the proposal unanimously with no conditions.
Understood. But we have re-engaged.
Sir, what would be the harm in pulling the proposal, as I have asked, as numerous community board members have asked, as the public has asked, what would be the harm in pulling this proposal and returning to the drawing board? We've already seen so many iterations of this. The new plan is out literally this morning, your own words. What would be the harm in pulling this and returning to the drawing board instead of trying to ram this through?
We don't think we're trying to ram this.
Tristan, if I may interject, I'm sorry, council member. Anyone on your team can interject and answer questions for the council member. They don't have to use the raise hand function. So Valerie, you could interject whenever you feel the need to answer the council member's question.
I did want.
Jordan, please continue.
Sure, I did want to accept the correction because when I talking about the as a right, I was talking about the as a right on the C83. There is a small portion of the site that is in the R72, and we think that 40 units of housing could be developed as a right on that site. There would be no requirement that any of those units be affordable, and I would like to correct that. Thank you.
Now let him go back and answer that.
Thank you. Yes, to address your question, council member, like I said, this project has been in the works a long time. We have gotten a lot of community feedback over the years. I understand you're recently in the council, and that's why we reached out to you even before your certification in your position.
Yes, but would not meet with me unless it was private.
And so we've continued to try to be reactive to the responses that we've gotten, which is why we've come back with a revised proposal that we think is responsive to the concerns that we've heard. And frankly,
yes, but where is the community input on the revised proposal? That is my question.
Again,
where has the community given input?
On conversations in many public hearings that you were a part of.
Okay. So I don't mean reacting to the outcry and doing your own thing and giving 11th hour breadcrumbs. I mean actually involving the community in the process.
I don't feel that 370 affordable units in your district is breadcrumbs, but.
Okay,
again,
let's stop, because we're lying. We are lying again. I'm sorry. We have to stop doing this. We have to. And it's not just this individual project. We as a city, like my fellow council members, we have to stop doing this, okay? Mandatory inclusionary housing is not affordable. We cannot use a metric that does not apply to the local community to determine affordability. It's not real, it's fake. It doesn't apply to the humans who actually live here in our district, in our community. And it's furthering displacement when we claim things are affordable and they are not. Can I ask, are you applying for a 421A tax abatement on this project?
I'll address your first point. As I mentioned, 300 of those units are affordable to 60% AMI average or below. Which according to census data is affordable to over 50% of the households in this district, which is over 30,000.
That is not true.
We believe, I'm just going by census data, but I do believe that that is impactful and reaches the folks in your neighborhood. And
that is not true, sir. That is not true, sir. Harlem has experienced extreme displacement. We have experienced violent gentrification. If you take the census data from the most recent census, then you are incorporating in new transplanted Harlemites. I am talking about longtime Harlem residents. I am talking about the people of the community. This is not 60% AMI is not affordable to the people of the community, and we should stop lying about that. 1 in 3 makes $25,000 a year or less. Half the community is making $49,000 or less. So this is, I'm representing the stats. I'm representing the stats of longtime Harlemites and not the stats of new gentrifiers with an inflated number that is skewed by MIH because you are working to make money. I got it. I got that you're trying to inflate the numbers. I'm just saying that I see it. And the public sees it too. The people of Harlem see it as well. And I'm asking my colleagues to please see this too. I have other questions, but I don't know, since there's no truth. Okay, did you study the racial impact of the area? Let's ask that. Was there a study around the racial impact of this project on the area?
A racial impact study, no, was not completed.
For 915 units, no racial impact study.
Councilmember Richardson Jordan, can I ask that you ask 2 more questions? I'll allow the other colleagues to ask questions. Then I'll come right back to you for a second round.
You know what? That's okay. My colleagues can ask their questions.
All right. So just wait on. I'll come right back to you for a second round. Okay. Council, can you please call on the next council member who has a question?
Yes, I'll just announce the council members in the order in which they raise their hands. So first I have Councilmember Abreu to be followed by Councilmember Schulman, to be followed by Councilmember Farias. Councilmember Abreu.
Starting time.
Yeah, so my first question is to the panel, to the applicants. What is the average AMI in Harlem based off of the standard that the council member mentioned, longtime Harlemites who've been there for, let's say, 10 years or more?
I don't have data parsed that deeply, but based on years living in the district, but it's about $60,000.
Taking the council, so the council member, states that the average AMI is much less than 60%, is somewhere at least near 40 to 50, 50 being the highest.
Again, I'm just going by city DCP data.
Is it fair to say that 90% of the units therefore are at 60% AMI or above?
Say that again?
If we're assuming that the AMI in Harlem is somewhere between 40 and 50 AMI, is it fair to say that 90% of the units are at 60% AMI or above?
I don't know where that number is coming from, but no, that's not correct. At least 20+% of the units would be at 40% of AMI or below.
I'm not sure that that's true, based off the breakdown I received from one of your representatives. So we should actually correct that for the record as well. My other question is, and this has to do with labor, why have you not made a commitment to build a 100% union as the Blood Center did? Are you taking any steps to address the concerns raised by the Carpenters Union?
Yeah, we've already made deals with Local 7932BJ.
Referring to Carpenters Union specifically, and whether or not it'll be 100% union.
So we have not committed to a 100% union project. I don't think that is feasible to do in this neighborhood, given the rent levels and the amount of affordability we're trying to provide. We've got to, unfortunately, we can't respond to every single need. We're trying our best to do that, but we're trying to provide a high level of affordability. And we've engaged with the Carpenters. We met with them several times, and we actually continue to reach out to them now to meet with them, and we are very open to bidding to them. We have not struck a deal with them, as you know, but we ruled any of them out of the equation.
Yeah, my understanding is you refuse to come back to the table. But that being said, my takeaway.
I'm sorry, Councilmember. That's not accurate. And actually, in our conversations with them today, it sounds like there may have been some internal wires crossed based on our communication, because we did sit down with them in May of 2021, again in January, for an update and let them know we'd keep them apprised of where we're going with the project, and especially particularly when we go to buy out construction. It was a friendly conversation and hadn't received any correspondence from them since then. So,
respectfully, my takeaway points are that you're not committed to 100% union labor, and that at least 85%, if not more, percent of the units are 60% AMI or above, which doesn't capture the 40 to 50% AMI levels of folks in Harlem who's really who these apartments will be out of reach for. So I would like to see in this project deep affordability and 100% union labor to have my support. Thank you so much.
And again, just from census data, 50% of the 300 units would be affordable to 50% of the over 50% of the constituents in the district.
Thank you, Councilmember Abreu. Next up, Councilmember Shulman.
Starting time. Councilmember, you still muted?
No, I'm not now. I should be fine. Chair Riley, thank you for holding this hearing today. I want to reiterate a little bit of what my colleague, Councilmember Brayu, said about 100% union. The Carpenters did tell me as of this morning that they had severe concerns. The other question I have is nothing was mentioned during the presentation about prevailing wage. So I wanted to know where you were with that.
As mentioned, the unions that we've made deals with, 32BJ, Local 79, will be prevailing wage positions.
All right, well, I urge you to please talk to the other unions as well. I understand you have the laborers. So my other question, different question. I know that the community board voted unanimously against the project. I did note that the Manhattan Borough President also voted to disapprove with conditions. I've read all the conditions this morning and didn't hear you address any of those conditions in the presentation. So I want to know where you were with those.
We have briefed, again, the community board and the Manhattan Borough President's office of this new plan. And they think we've made significant strides for improvement towards reaching a lot of their goals that they had addressed in, their hearings and their opinions.
All right, well, I'd like to hear more specifics about that instead of just saying you've met a lot of them. And the other, just as a general comment, is that you're asking, this is a huge project that's going to change the character of this area. And you're asking the council to give you a lot, and it doesn't sound like you're giving a lot in return. So I just wanted to mention that. I know you have, the number of units. I think, like the borough president said, at least 50% of the units should be affordable housing, and I didn't hear that. And all kinds of stuff about space and free public space for certain parts of the year and all of that. There's a specific laundry list of things that the borough president put out. And I want to hear more specifics about those. It doesn't have to be now, but at some point in time.
Sure. Thank you. We do think we've made strides towards addressing that. We can continue to have the affordability conversation. And again, we think we've addressed making this a place that would be inclusive for a lot of users through the kinds of spaces that we're providing to local CBOs and other kinds of users.
All right, thank you. That's all, Chair Riley, that I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Shulman. Councilmember Farias, and then we're going to go back to Councilmember Richardson Jordan.
Starting time.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm just going to try to run through questions as I've listed them since we're with limited time. In terms of climate change, and I heard that was mentioned during the presentation, what are some of the pathways you're looking into for this project to create good green climate jobs? I know you mentioned pathways to apprenticeship and some other partnerships that you have going on.
Yeah, for climate jobs, we're working with a group called Ready Districts, who does geothermal energy and other types of sustainable energy projects all throughout the country. We have spoken with other groups like WEAC, Green Energy Force, and others about supplementing the programs we're already doing. As I mentioned, we have a funded program with NYSERDA, and we do think that this project will create several hundred green jobs in different areas like solar voltaic installers,
Sure.
energy fields, plumbers, pipe fitters, etc.
So I'm hearing plumbers and pipe fitters, which is great, but are any of these apprenticeship models that you'll be implementing?
Yes, they will be part of an apprenticeship program that we're running with some of the partners I mentioned.
Is it a registered Department of Labor, New York State Department of Labor apprenticeship or an apprenticeship model? Big difference.
Apprenticeship model at this point, but.
Okay. And I'm hearing that we only have deals with laborers and 32BJ. being that you will be creating green jobs, don't you think this is a good opportunity to work with additional labor unions to create that pipeline and that pathway for local hire?
We are in conversations with other labor unions at this point. I haven't spoken about them because we haven't reached deals yet, but yes, we are continuing to speak with the labor unions, including the carpenters.
Yeah, I'm always in favor of a good apprenticeship model, but a unionized registered apprenticeship is actually what creates middle class jobs, and where folks and families can actually stay in the neighborhoods that you're trying to, quote unquote, keep them in. So, I urge you folks to move away from a model and really look at how to get registered apprenticeships within this project.
And we are working with Positive Workforce, who's locally based in Harlem, has placed over 20,000 jobs that have turned into careers, largely for constituents in this district. So I hear you. We're working towards it.
And so in terms of the laborers and 32BJ, do you have a breakdown of how many of their union members are actually, I'm really actually not interested in the 32BJ numbers, the laborers, the ones that are going to build this building. Do you know how many people are part of local hire? Like, what is the actual number of members they have in the union in the Harlem area?
So there are many hundreds in the district, and we do have an agreement with them that commits to both local existing members in the district, as well as a quota to reach for new members in the district, given union membership.
Okay. I won't belabor the point on labor and apprenticeships, but thank you. So I hear you're interested in attracting seniors, and that's why you have the affordability rate that's going on. Did you folks seek any federal subsidy programs like the SARA program while looking at this project?
We have been in discussion with HPD about various programs for very low and extremely low income units, and we continue those discussions with them.
Okay, and outside of the community center, are there any other deep community investments that are being made, or a CBA that's being developed?
We are, as I mentioned, investing a multi-million-dollar investment into the playground across the street from us. And we are committed to providing services and spaces for people within the community and in the building for healthcare services, culinary arts training, and some of the other entities that I mentioned. We're also doing, excuse me, a internship program and also a youth mentorship program in partnership with Mission Society that we've actually been running since March.
Time expired.
Got it. And hearing that the time expired, I'll wrap right here. I just really want to state for the record that I'm hearing through multiple testimony that, and it's continually being stated that y'all think this project is best for Harlem and it's good for Harlem, when Harlem is literally saying it is not. And I would like to see some more deeper affordability. I think my colleagues really touched on that, along with unionized build, especially for my support. I also think it's important that y'all have to consider working with the members, whether it's the council member, the BP, the community board. I think for all of us as Council Member Richardson Jordan's colleagues, it's alarming to have folks that are coming into our communities that are really refusing to come to the table in a real way. We each approach these ULURPs and these decisions differently. And so I would really urge you folks to reconsider how you're approaching the council members' requests and Harlem's requests going forward. I'm from the Southeast Bronx, but my grandmother lives on 112th and 5th. And so what's happening in Harlem is really important to me as well, other than just being a New York City council member. So I really urge you folks to reconsider your approach going forward.
And I appreciate that. We did make this change in response to many meetings that we've had with local stakeholders, elected officials. We have attempted to reach out to the council member, we have spoken with the borough president and others about this new plan, and we'll continue to work at it.
Well, I appreciate that. All I will say is we look forward to having that public hearing that the council member asked, since it was stated here, and now everyone knows that it's desired. So we look forward to seeing that.
Thank you, Councilmember Farias, for that. Councilmember Hanks, I know you had your hand raised. Did you have a question? Councilmember Richardson Jordan, I'm just going to allow Councilmember Hanks and go right back to you if that's okay.
Starting time.
I just want to applaud my colleagues. Councilmember Farias really said it best, and I echo the sentiments of everyone here. Me being on Staten Island, you have to understand that you know, everybody talks about responsible development, but we here at this hearing want to have sensible development, which makes sense to the neighborhood. And so if you don't have a cooperative or an agreement or buy-in from the very people and neighbors that are going to live here, if they can afford to live here, and if the jobs are such that they can be able to earn a living, reach the middle class and live here. So if it doesn't have the labor, if it doesn't have the deeper affordability, like these are the things that, you know, the council member Richardson Jordan is talking about. And so I'm hoping to hear the next reiteration of this and to really listen to what's being said here. And thank you, Chair Riley, for that consideration, but it really wasn't a question. So.
Thank you, Councilmember Hanks. I would like to turn it back over to Councilmember Richardson Jordan for a second round of questions.
Starting time.
So I just wanted to ask if at this point there would be an openness to the meeting that I had asked for regarding a new proposal, which is an open meeting with community members. Yes or no?
We do have willingness to meet with you, yes.
Okay, is there at this point a commitment to doing a racial impact study to actually see what is going to be the effects of displacement on the area from such a huge project?
We can continue to have that discussion with you.
All right, is there at this point any commitment to having some real deep affordability, as I said, and to and just to say, my colleague, Councilmember Abreu, asked about those who have been in Harlem 10 years or more. That is the stats by which we did our rubric, which has been shared with this applicant and shared with other development. So yes, the stats that I am talking about, where we have a third of the community at 25,000 or less, we have a half the community at 49,000 a year or less. These are stats of the longtime Harlemites, and those who aren't looking at that data should not be claiming affordability because you haven't looked at the real data. Is there at this point a commitment to doing deep affordability along the lines of what actually reflects the community, where we have a third of the community that is in need of those deeply affordable units at the very least?
Again, we are willing to sit down with you and discuss you know, your requests and see what we can do to meet them.
Okay, and that's again with an open meeting, correct?
I think we'd prefer to be in a setting that's conducive to direct negotiation. But we, again, reiterate that we would like to meet with you.
Okay, so the issue is at this point, because this has been a publicized project and the whole community has seen it, that it is unacceptable to do a deal that doesn't have community buy-in and public support, which is part of why the reasons I've been asking to pull this proposal and simply start again, because you know we can't have unilaterally deciding things for the whole community. This is how corruption breeds, and this is how we keep making deals that aren't good for our communities. And that's what makes the ULURP process so crooked. So again, big picture, I will once again send a message about us meeting, but it will have to be a meeting that's accessible to my community, because the outcry is righteously and rightfully from the community, as I'm sure we're going to get to hear in public testimony.
I understand the intention was not to make any backdoor deals without input of the community.
Yeah, well, I think a good faith effort would have been pulling the proposal the way I asked, the way the community board has asked. I mean, it's not too late to do the right thing.
We simply don't have the ability to do that. We have financial obligations, other things that it's just not possible.
Thank you, Councilmember Richardson Jordan, for your questioning. Just give me 1 second. There being no further questions for this applicant panel, you are excused. Council, are there any members of the public who wish to testify on 145 proposal?
Thank you, Chair Riley. And before you do the general announcement for them, yes, we do have several members of the public patiently waiting to testify. And I just want to say a quick announcement for those of you who are waiting. We will get to all of you. We'll call you in panels. The chair will make an announcement just now about the process. So you don't need to raise your hand up in Zoom. We'll just lower your hands right now and we'll call on you as we get to you. Thank you so much for your patience. Go ahead, Chair.
Thank you, Council. Members of the public will be given 2 minutes to speak. Please do not begin until the Sergeant at Arms has begun. Council, can you announce any members of the public?
Yes, we're going to call on the first panel, which is made up of Karen Dixon, Moira Davis, Catherine Warren, and Patricia Sanchez. Karen Dixon will be the first member of this panel.
Starting time.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Ms. Dixon.
Good morning, Chairperson Riley and members of the Subcommittee on Zoning and Franchises. My name is Karen Dixon, and I am the Chair of the Land Use Committee for Manhattan Community Board 10. I'm here to provide testimony on behalf of the Community Board in the absence of our Chairperson, Ms. Cicely Harris. We urge the Council to vote no on this project. From the onset, the community expressed concerns related to the proposed number of affordable units compared to fair market units, the disproportionate number of studio and one-bedroom units compared to larger units for families, the increased density to the area where pre-existing transportation challenges created by a shortened number 3 subway station located on 146th Street and Malcolm X Boulevard, as well as the anticipated displacement of existing residents where almost all of our renters or most of our renters are severely rent burdened. While the developer proposes a third building in the area previously slated for the Civil Rights Museum that include housing for unionized workers, seniors, and formerly homeless people, the project still does not meet the needs of the community. Only 27 apartments out of 915 will be designated for the formerly homeless. 207 apartments will be permanently affordable on an average AMI, but with AMI going up to 110%. We also will have 70% of the apartments that will remain only studio and one-bedroom units, while gaining 546 fair market apartments. AMI levels are not realistic for the residents of the community. Residents continue to experience challenges in the wake of the pandemic. Much has been said to the community that we should embrace this proposal because of the added number of affordable units, the anticipated beautification of the area, and the alleged community benefits. But why should we settle when the need in the community is greater than what is proposed? As a point of clarity, the community board did meet briefly with the developers yesterday, and we were informed about the project. We did not say that we fully support it, but we acknowledge that there was an increase in the number of affordable units than was previously proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dixon.
Chair Riley, the next witness testifies Moira Davis, to be followed by Catherine Warren.
Starting time.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you for having this meeting. My name is Moira Davis. I'm the board president at Esplanade Gardens, and I'm just listening to everything. And it's amazing that the renovation of the train station actually is used to say something was done about the issue about the train station, which is not true. It's still 5 cars. I just want to mention that 145th Street, it appears to be a wide space, but it's not wide. It's only a lane and a half, one being a bus lane. And if you look at all of the architectural developments, it all blends in with the existing neighborhood. In my opinion, the way the project is marked currently, it almost would appear to be a cactus and a bouquet of roses. It would totally stick out, and it doesn't actually blend into the community. Also, I noticed that Tristan had mentioned that there were adjustments made to the height. I noticed it also appeared shorter in the photo rendering, but I'd never heard actually what the height of the buildings were going to be, the new proposal. In addition to that, it's not just about affordability or who gets to work on the project, who's going to earn on the project. It's about how the project affects the entire community, the people who live here. You know, we want new members of our community to join. Harlem is a very diverse community, but this project is not taking into account of who lives here now and what actually will benefit. I also noticed there's a lot of last ditch efforts and last minute things that are being thrown in. Senior housing, when we spoke with the developer, our issues that we've presented have remained the same. So I'm just a little confused about things. And I agree with Councilmember Jordan that I think we need to take this back to the drawing board and come up with something really tangible, because this is not it.
Thank you, Moria. The next witness on this panel is Catherine Warren, to be followed by Patricia Sanchez.
Starting time.
Hi, thank you. My name is Catherine Warren. I am actually a proud Esplanade Gardens cooperator. I have been here for 11 years, a Harlemite for 15 years, born and raised in Manhattan my entire life. I cannot stress how important it is that the council member, I want to paint a picture in regards to what the community actually is. 145th and Lenox is actually at the juxtaposition of not one, but 2 hospitals. We have Harlem Hospital at 135th and Lenox, and Lincoln Hospital right across the 145th Street Bridge, which is actually, the entrance is at 145th and Lenox. The amount of traffic that occurs every single day. We have documentation, pictures every day. It doesn't matter if there's a Yankee game or not. In terms of the amount of density of the traffic, while adding an additional 2 stories to, 2 tall buildings that, although they stress 28 stories, they're not taking into consideration the actual commercial and retail space underneath, which actually, if you look at the drawings, it actually says 363 feet. We are 27 stories at Esplanade Gardens. However, 363 feet would be equivalent of 36 stories, which would tower over the entire community. The impact of not just the shading for the community in terms of the sun, to the park across the street, to our neighbors on 144th and all around. It also will impact in regards to light pollution, the traffic that was mentioned in terms of off-street parking. There's an abundant amount of off-street parking. That is ridiculous. I've driven around for 3 hours looking for parking. And in terms of the transit, Moria touched upon, it is an abbreviated train station. So please take in consideration what the community is asking for. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Catherine. The last witness on this panel is Patricia Sanchez.
Starting time.
Hi, good afternoon. I would first like to thank the committee for allowing me the time to add my voice to the 145 project. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
We can hear you, Ms. Sanchez.
Yes, thank you for allowing me the time to voice my opinion. I wanted to go on record as a member of the community that is opposed to the 145 project. There are several reasons why the community is against the project. I have had many conversations with the members of my community and my development. I live directly across the street on the opposite corner of 145th Street and Lenox Avenue. I am a shareholder of the Esplanade Gardens community. I would briefly like to point out just a few concerns. First of all, people were not aware of the 145 project. They were not aware of the plans for the parcel of land. Therefore, I'm pointing out that the developer probably did not involve the community in the plans for our community in which we live. I speak for myself and for many others. Most people would be pleased and see the row of stores revitalized and improved. However, we feel that the two proposed towering buildings, also known as skyscrapers, are not welcome and do not fit in our community. Our area is already taxed with congestion, noise pollution, and pollution. Adding over 900 housing units in what I consider a small amount of land will be overwhelming to the block as well as our community. That is not even a square block. Additionally, since it was said that the museum is not going to be coming to that location and that the space is recommended for senior housing, does that mean the proposal will now involve even more units than the already proposed 900 plus? Some people will be moving in, owning their own cars, and where will they park? Please keep in mind that we have the Mother Hale bus depot 1 block away, adding to the pollution. We are constantly faced with the buses idling on Lenox Avenue, waiting to enter the garage of the depot. We are faced with a lot of traffic on 145th Street and Lenox Avenue, trying to cross over the 145th Street Bridge, also adding to our pollution. There are many more concerns that I could say, but I know others will have time to speak as well. I would just like to conclude by saying, if any housing is built on that site, that it should fit in with the already existing structures and buildings. I'm asking the committee and any powers to be, please consider all of the community and do not allow any structures to be built taller than the storage facility across the street from the location and the storage facility that is located around the corner on 146th Street. Also, I would just like to say that parking is definitely an issue in our community. And for them to say that it won't be, is not telling the truth. Anybody could stand on 145th Street any time of the day and see that we are overwhelmed with congestion. And that needs to be taken into consideration. Adding all these additional units will just heighten the congestion in our community. So please do not have skyscrapers that do not fit in our community. Please bring it back to the table and talk it over with the community. We know what's best for us. Thank you for listening.
No problem, Ms. Sanchez. Thank you for your testimony. Council members, we will be allowing each panel, you can ask each panel questions. There'll be a 2-minute time limit. Council, are there any council members with questions at this time?
Chair, I don't see any council members with questions at this time.
Okay, we can move on to the next panel. And thank you to the panelists who came and testified today. Thank you.
The next panel will be Laura Colacurcio, William Parrish, Renzo Ramirez, and Jared Davis. Laura Colacurcio will be the first panel. Sorry, panelist, sorry if I mispronounced your name, Laura.
Starting time.
Hi there. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of the Association for a Better New York. My name is Laura Colacurcio, and I am the Vice President at ABNY. ABNY is a nonprofit organization dedicated to the healthy growth and renewal of New York City's people, businesses, and communities. We are a 50-year-old civic organization representing corporations, nonprofits, unions, government authorities, and educational, cultural, and health institutions. We strive to promote connections between the public and private sectors to make New York City a better place to live, work, and visit for all. As ABNY seeks to move our city forward during the ongoing and evolving COVID-19 pandemic, we look towards transformative economic development projects that have the potential to improve the communities and the lives of people living within them. The developers of the 145 Harlem project have listened to local stakeholders to refine the proposed development. In direct response to input from the community, the number of housing units proposed has increased to 915, including an additional 150 affordable units, creating 367 new units of affordable housing in total, 40% of the project. Among those affordable units, more than 90 will be reserved for very and extremely low-income seniors, and still more, 70 units of affordable union-targeted workforce homes have been added to the project since its certification. 145 Harlem will also serve its community by including 16,000 square feet of community facility space for local nonprofits, including House of Justice, as well as the world headquarters for National Action Network. The project also endeavors to be New York City's first geothermal green energy district, creating emission savings that will promote environmental justice. Additionally, 145 Harlem will create an estimated 1,200 jobs in the green energy sector, many of which will be available to local residents and union members. Moreover, 145 Harlem is dedicated to sponsoring a fully funded year-round local youth employment and apprenticeship initiative. Furthermore, the developers have committed to a weekly leadership seminar in partnership with the Mission Society. This seminar has been operating since March of this year already. The 145 Harlem proposal will create a mixed-use development that will be home to a diverse group of tenants and represents a progressive urban environment that will serve as a model for other privately financed development projects in New York City. The current lot is underutilized and presents an opportunity to better serve the community. ABNY supports this enhanced version of the DCP certified, CPC approved 145 proposal to bring housing and job opportunities for Harlem and urges the process to move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura. Before I call on the next witness, I just have a quick announcement for those of you that want to testify. If you could just go to the council website to register, so you can then register. You can get a link. So please go to our council website to register for the hearing. And I said this before, but those of you who are waiting for testimony, to give testimony, we'll get to you. So you don't need to raise your hand. We'll get to all of you shortly, hopefully soon. The next witness for this panel will be William Parrish, to be followed by Renzo Ramirez.
Starting time.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to testify to the subcommittee on zoning and Chair Riley. My name is William Parrish. I'm President and CEO of Noble Strategy. We're a minority-owned construction management firm who has worked extensively in the Harlem community. We are part of the team to move this process along in a way that would fit the community needs, not only the consideration of where folks live, but how they work and how they grow as it relates to construction jobs, over 200 jobs that we expect to see, not only construction trade-based jobs, but also opportunities in the green workforce for low-skilled and no-skilled workers who can jump into this industry and be on the front edge of one of the leading industries in the country on green energy. Partner with folks, not only NYSERDA, but We Act, possibly some other entities, including Strive Harlem, to create opportunities for disenfranchised youth to be a part of this green energy district, as well as the project, and build in their community. The positive workforce integrations will be in Local 79 and an opportunity to provide construction trade-based opportunities. So our goal is to work with the team to make certain that as the project goes into construction, we have allocated real hiring plans and real business diversity plans so that folks in the community who own businesses, who are entrepreneurs, who do this work can grow and live and get a piece of this opportunity as it relates to the development at hand. Thank you.
Thank you, William. The next witness for this panel is Renzo Ramirez.
Starting time.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair Riley and members of the subcommittee. My name is Renzo Ramirez. I am a native New Yorker and I work as a doorman. I'm here on behalf of my union, 32BJ, and the 85,000 building service workers 32BJ represents in New York City to express our support for this rezoning. 32BJ supports responsible developers who invest in the communities where they build. I'm happy to report that many of the developers in the rezoning area have made credible commitments to create affordable housing for the community. 145 will also create over 800 new housing units, nearly 300 new affordable units, and 12 to 13 prevailing wage building service jobs. This commitment is an investment in the community that will give working families opportunity for upward mobility and security. Projects like the one being discussed today allow people like myself the opportunity to stay in New York City. We support the rezoning and we are confident that many of the developers will be responsible employers and make a positive impact on the community. For these reasons, we respectfully urge to approve this rezoning. On behalf of the New York City 32BJ membership, we support this rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Renzo. And the last speaker on this panel will be Jared Davis.
Starting time.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for allowing me to speak. I am a Harlem resident and I've lived here for all 19 years of my life. And the one thing I don't seem to really understand is the aggression towards change and progression in a modern city, a modern urban center, especially within underutilized and underdeveloped areas. We are getting well over 300, we are getting those affordable units. No residents are being displaced on site. And just looking at the list of facts on their websites, I could say, as someone who usually opposes gentrification within predominantly Black neighborhoods, this project is offering the most I've ever seen in a single project. We'll be getting the largest art installation. Our union workers will be getting jobs, a green energy district, the first of its kind, youth empowerment, community space, the list goes on. So I can't comprehend why anyone would be against a project of this scope. There's a stigma that every development that comes to Harlem is an automatic sign of gentrification and should be immediately knocked down. Yes, that stigma is justifiable. And some of the developments we've seen sprout up in the area, especially around the 125th Street area. Let's not forget the as of right plans. Pushing this project away may lead to further gentrification. Why? The as of right plan is either a market rate building or it can be another soulless storage facility building, both things I would not want to see in place of hundreds of apartments. However, with my support, I believe that the developers must include more community input for this project. We must take into account the conditions that the community desires. We must include also more affordability. And with that said, I hope the development pushes forward with the community in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Chair, it looks like Councilmember Richardson Jordan has questions for this panel.
Councilman Richardson Jordan.
Starting time.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Mr. William Parrish that we have a Green to Greener initiative for our Harlem parks that I am funding with discretionary to move parks towards carbon zero and do a lot of beautiful green energy things, including opportunities for the kids. And that would also create green jobs in a way without having, the displacement of our community. So I'm wondering if you have any interest in working with us on that project, which, does the work without harming Harlemites, but still has that green energy in mind. Would you be interested in that Green to Greener initiative?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, certainly, council member.
Because there are ways to get there.
Yeah,
and that is important.
As a green energy professional, I've been a lead accredited professional since 2004. This is the work that I do, and I know that this is not only for folks who have, typically we look for folks with architecture, engineering, and construction 4-year degrees, but this work allows folks who, as long as they can use a computer, can learn and be proficient in this space. So I'm really looking forward to those opportunities.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, council member. Council, we can move on to the next panel.
Yes, and before we do, I just want to provide the website because I did not in my prior announcement. Again, if you want to register to testify, you need to go to www.council.nyc.gov/land use, one word, to testify. Thank you. The next panel will be Joshua Clennon, June Moses, Dilsenia Glover, and Deborah Gilliard. First panelist is Joshua Clennon.
Starting time.
Good afternoon. Thank you to the City Council. Thank you, Chair Raleigh. My name is Joshua Clennon. I'm a lifelong Harlem resident, Office of Community Board 10. I'm here to urge the council to vote in no of this project. The Harlem community is not a community that's anti-development. We recognize that we need and want to build more affordable housing, but we refuse to do so at the expense of existing residents, nor without honest commitments to address community concerns. There are several significant community concerns that remain unaddressed by this development team. This development team has been unwilling to be transparent and address concerns regarding the affordability and composition of their affordable units. A majority of units set aside for affordable housing in the original rendering were studio-sized apartments, which does not meet the community needs of low-income housing for families within our district. The developer said that in their testimony today that 20% of the units will be below 40% AMI, which is inconsistent with the new breakdown that we have that clearly shows that only 10% of the units will be 50% AMI or below. So they are perhaps still confused on the breakdown of the composition of affordability for this project. At the community board, there were no commitments made for union labor, apprenticeship programs, MBE contracts for pre-development and marketing, and no commitments for permanent jobs for locals after the project is completed. There are no agreements in place with several small businesses who will be displaced as a result of this project. No effort to address the increased congestion that this project will bring to the 145th Street corridor. As many have stated, the 145th Street station only opens to 5 cars. The project is not contextual with the existing neighborhood. The current design sticks out like a sore thumb, and the backup renderings with the residential rezoning would be a much better starting point for future conversations. The stated community benefits in this project, including Brigadier General Young Playground. That park was renovated in the past fiscal cycle, and the Green Energy District is contingent on future state legislation, and there are no agreements or commitments with NYCHA and private housing to even make this a reality.
Thank you, Joshua. The next speaker will be June Moses, to be followed by Dilsenia Glover.
Starting time.
Good afternoon. Hi, my name is June, like the month, Moses, like the Bible. I'd like to thank y'all for giving me the opportunity to come to speak before you on this project. I am the proud president of the West 135th Street Apartments Tenant Association Incorporated. We are 10 buildings on 135th Street between Lenox and 7th Avenues, 198 units, about 1,000 people. My people here, we are at, with Section 8, 30% of our income. or we also fall into that 40, 60% of AMI. Now, from listening to everything that's been said, one thing I can say is that there's been this insidious game being played with language right now, because we keep saying the word affordable, 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 yet everyone on this call understands that low income and affordable are two very separate and different things. Now that we see this piece of affordable, low income piece coming into the project, we also see that there's a way that the residents themselves can be cherry picked through this. There's a set aside for people who are right now suffering without homes. But again, is this also going to be a cherry picking process? Because will the people who actually hear, no one can afford this. They cannot. And I keep hearing 60% of the AMI and census numbers. But NPR just reported March of this year that the census numbers, Black people, brown people, we were all woefully undercounted. So again, we're still working with ghost numbers. Over here, we are not against any type of progress. That's not it at all. But what we're saying is that while we were here through the bad times and we stuck it through and we're putting up, when the good times come and great things come, are we going to be allowed to take part? And from everything that I'm seeing, we're going to be pushed out. So please reconsider and open up more for more low income people, because that's kind of where the community is. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, June. The next speaker for this panel is Dulcinea Glover, to be followed by Deborah Gilliard.
Starting time.
Do we have Dulcinea?
You're unmuted, but nothing is coming out audio.
Dulcinea, we can hear you. Can you speak? I mean, you're unmuted. While we work out those audio issues, maybe we can move on to Deborah Gilliard.
Starting time.
Okay, can people hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Dulcinea. So we'll start the clock over. Sorry, Chair.
Okay, sorry about that. Yes, I am Dulcinea Glover, and I represent the Executive Committee of the Lennox Terrace Association of Concerned Tenants. Thank you, Chair Riley, and the committee for allowing me to speak. As primarily lifelong residents, excuse me, of Harlem, we are extremely concerned and vehemently opposed to the development of the 145 project, which offers very little affordable housing and no deeply affordable housing in a community that is desperately in need. The developer said that there's a housing crisis in New York City. Well, the crisis is a crisis of affordable housing and deeply affordable housing, not just housing. For example, Central Harlem has one of the highest percentages of housing insecure children in the New York City public schools in our district. A high percentage of children who live in unstable housing situations are documented to be below grade level as compared to children who are not. We are in need of housing for those families. It is insulting that in a district and a city with so many families in shelter and with 200,000 eviction cases pending in the New York City court system, that there can be any consideration for a development project in Central Harlem that does not consider families who are most in need of housing. The 145 project will further displace and gentrify our neighborhood, as it is more than 10,000 Black and brown individuals and families, renters and potential owners have left the district, many moving out of state due to the lack of affordability of rental housing, as well as home ownership opportunities. We witnessed the presentations by the developer of this project at Community Board 10 hearings and meetings. I was personally insulted when this statement was made by the owner representative, Mr. Nadal, quote, "This project will support thriving members of the community." What does that mean, thriving members? Who are these thriving members? I will leave it to the developer to answer that question. What we do know is that this rezoning is not designed for community members nor for working families. It is a displacement plan. The amount of affordable housing they offer is insulting as well. In addition, relieving the pressure on the existing transit system infrastructure that this project will bring has not been clearly defined. We are just over 2 years out from a years-long fight against rezoning of the Lennox Terrace and the massive infill, primarily market rate housing project that would have been in development right now had not the Lennox Terrace residents and the larger community not opposed it so vehemently. We do that again here today. The people of Harlem have spoken through the community board process and said no. The Manhattan Borough President has spoken and said no. I urge you to vote no to the 145 project on behalf of my neighbors throughout Harlem. This project cannot be approved. Respectfully. Thank you.
Thank you, Dulcinea. And the last speaker on this panel is Deborah Gilliard.
Starting time.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I am a senior and I am troubled by the 145 project. As a lifelong Harlemite, I have seen changes, both good and bad, in the Harlem community. I have also seen the hopes of families getting together to clean up Harlem block by block. Now I see a turning point in our area. Harlem is becoming a place where only the upper middle class and above can afford to live here. Most of the new development rates are unaffordable to the area families. We raise our kids, they go to college, but yet they cannot afford to live here when they come back because it's too high. We are losing our local history, our families, our young adults to this new housing theory of market rate apartments. It has to stop. We need affordable rents based on the income of long-term Harlem residents. I say no to special permits that would allow this project to add congestion, pollution, and filth to our community. 145 project is not appropriate for our area and definitely not on 145th Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
Council, we can move on to the next panel.
If there are no council members with questions, we can call on the next panel, which only has 2 people in it. I will call on Wayne Brimfield and Ului Martinez. Wayne Brimfield is the first speaker on this panel.
Starting time.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can hear
Yes,
you.
we can hear you, Wayne.
Okay, my name is Wayne Brimfield. I live in Harlem, and I'm the president of a tennis association here in Drew Hamilton. Over the years, I have made it a point to get involved in my community, to get out and to get to know my neighbors and my neighborhood. I can say from firsthand experience that the corner of 145th and Lenox has been blighted for years. It's time for us to do better. We need housing for our families and for our seniors, for our friends, and those who are getting started in life and those who are restarting in life. This project, I feel, provides this. We need a corner that we can trust. One that is activated and thriving, one that is beautiful and secure. And we need space for our community groups to be able to facilitate their work again. I feel this project provides this. I want 145 in my neighborhood, and I want my constituents to support this project. I yield my time. Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you, Wayne. The next speaker will be Ului Martinez.
Starting time.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Uli Martinez. I'm a principal of Pinnacle Alliance Corp, a minority business enterprise that has worked on many significant projects in Harlem, including Sendero Verde, Acacia Gardens, the Smile Building, and Columbia University's Manhattan campus. We started Pinnacle over 5 years ago to address the need for minority-owned construction businesses and the need to hire local people from our communities. I've sat in many community meetings where we listen to plan developers have for communities. They talk about their plans, but we rarely hear in their plans how they're going to empower local businesses and people in the community. 145 is proactively making a commitment from the inception to hire minority businesses and people from the community to ensure that Harlemites are directly involved in this development and benefit from it. As a minority-owned business with 95% people of color, local people, this is such a key and important, component of what we often lack in major developments. 145 is committed to hiring local people of color, local minority business enterprises, and that's why I'm here to support this project. They're bringing not only jobs for minority-owned businesses and local people, but they're also building a sustainable design, and they plan to provide green energy district and jobs. It's exactly the kind of innovation and development that we need in Harlem. I'm here today to tell you that a vote yes for 145's development is a vote yes to new business, new jobs, new opportunities, and a Harlem community that can be proud of this collective effort to make this project happen.
Time expired.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yuli. Councilman Richardson Jordan, do you have a question for this panel?
Yes, I wanted to ask Yuli, how many people who live in District 9 work for you?
Hold on a minute, Yuli.
Excuse me, Councilman, we have many people that work for, I don't have the exact number, but we have many people. The reason why we have many people on our payroll is because we work in conjunction with local workforce development organizations like Positive Workforce, who's essentially the pipeline for all our employees.
Okay, would it be
their
possible?
Pipeline is coming from Harlem.
Would it be possible for solid numbers to be sent to me, please? Could I get a solid number accounting?
A solid number of
Yes, of people in District 9 who work for you, because many in the pipeline is vague and it's not a number.
Oh, I understand.
Are you able to send that to me in some follow-up?
Yes, I understand, but I do
Okay.
want to mention that for this 145 project, the commitment to hire us is a commitment
Yes, but
for us to
I'm
hire
asking
local
currently.
Harlem
I'm
people.
asking who you have currently.
Okay,
I would
that's
like
fine.
current numbers. Yes.
Sure, I can get
Okay.
you those numbers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, council member. Thank you, Yuli. Council, can we move on to the next panel, please?
Yes, the next panel will be made up of Brianna McClure, Amanda Yagi, Adrian Thomas, and Francine Murray. Brianna McClure, the first speaker.
Starting time.
Hello, good afternoon. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay.
Yes.
Some nods. Okay, fantastic. Great. So my name is Brianna McClure. I'm a lifelong resident of Harlem, and I'm joining you here today in order to testify against the 145 development. I actually did have some things prepared to say, but in learning a lot of this new information, I do want to point out that in the extremely low income section of this, I guess, new iteration of the development, I would like to highlight that the majority, all of those extremely low income units are compartmentalized into one section of the development. So that is extremely alarming to me because it seems to me that that's a clear way to segregate low income residents from the potentially higher, from the higher residents. So I did want to start off by saying that, but like many of my community members have said, current affordability rates at 145 are too high, they're unrealistic. And the reality is that the 145 development is catered to the luxury market in a low income neighborhood, to be honest. It excludes most people living in this neighborhood, and it will increase rents and housing costs for us locals. I have witnessed new and wealthier families move in, while my friends and families are simultaneously being pushed out. There's even a homeless man that lives in an abandoned car on the street of this proposed development who greets you every day and opens the door for you. So it is clear that this development will not house existing Harlem families, and it will not house those most in need. Again, I would like to point out that even with these new numbers, only 160 out of proposed 900 units would actually be affordable to us local residents. Now, on the transportation and congestion, clearly this area is paralyzed by heavy traffic, overcrowded buses. It nearly takes 30 minutes to travel across town. The 3 train station has a shortened platform, and it is inaccessible to disabled commuters. It's also estimated that 1,900 to 2,600 new residents will be added to this area, increasing the population by 5%. And I would just like to close by saying 632 community members have signed a petition against this development. So when I speak, I am also representing 632 community members that have said no. Thank you.
Thank you, Brianna. The next speaker will be Amanda Yagi, to be followed by Adrian Thomas.
Starting time.
Hi, I'm here to speak as a resident of, sorry. I didn't want to do that. I'm speaking as a resident of the neighborhood. I'm very happy to have Councilmember Jordan be representing me. I am a resident of 4 years. I'm disabled. I'm a writer. I rely a lot on being able to walk the short distance to my corner grocery store, and the prices that are affordable there. I would not qualify for 60% AMI in this project, so I am one of the 80% of the residents of this neighborhood. 80% of the apartments in this development would not be affordable for someone like me. In addition, I just wanted to call out the ridiculous greenwashing, last-minute greenwashing by this developer. According to the World Economic Forum, they're not exactly socialists over there, but the World Economic Forum, most recent data was that 38% of global emissions were construction related. So I don't know how exactly they're bringing environmental justice to the community already drenched in bus smog because of the tiny subway station. Concrete alone, I think, is 8% of global emissions. So they're going to build that with magic. What about the diesel trucks idling for 2-3 years? It's absurd to call this a green construction project. It's insulting and degrading. That's all.
Thank you, Amanda. The next speaker is Adrian Thomas, to be followed by Francine Murray.
Starting time.
Adrian, are you there? Sure, it looks like Adrian's having trouble unmuting. So while we try to get to her again, I'm going to call on Francine Murray.
No problem.
Starting time.
Yes, good afternoon. Most of the points I had to mention have been mentioned, but I noticed that they equated the height of Esplanade Gardens to the new project that's being developed, and that is absolutely not true. First of all, Esplanade Gardens does not interfere with anyone else, and this project certainly would interfere with everyone. The traffic, the reduction of parking will add to the horrendous traffic that we see on 145th Street, particularly between 3 and 6:30 p.m. And to assume that these people that are coming in will not have cars is absurd. It was mentioned that the renovation of the subway did not increase capacity. It was only for beautification. So why that was even mentioned, we wonder about. And also my question is, how would a private bus company benefit the community at large. I vote no, please vote no for this project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Francine. I'm going to see if we can try again for Adrian Thomas. Adrian, we're going to have to move on, but to the next panel, but we can get you later. We're getting you an unmute request, but staff is telling me you're not answering. So we're going to move on to the next panel and we can get you later at a later time. And while we do that, I just want to make a quick announcement about, it sounds from two things that I just want to announce. Again, if you're in the meeting right now and wish to provide testimony to the subcommittee, please go to our website at www.council.nyc.gov/land use so you can register, so you can get a link, so you can testify. And then the other thing, I'm being told that some of you that already testify are joining back the Zoom. So you can just watch the hearing from the council website at www.nyc.gov, council.nyc.gov, and you can follow the links there to see the live stream. So you don't need to rejoin the meeting. So the staff will remove you once you testify. Thank you for allowing me to make that announcement. And then we're going to call on the next panel. Chair, I just need a couple of minutes to get from staff the names of the panelists. So the meeting will stand at ease while I do that. Give me just 1 second. Thank you for your patience. The next panel will be Michelle Botillo, Janice Tootie Jackson, Donald Curtis, and Julius Hydeen. Sorry if I mispronounced your name, Julius. So again, the first person will be Michelle Botillo.
Starting time.
Do we have Michelle?
Michelle, can you hear us?
And we're having trouble with Michelle. Michelle, if you're getting an unmute request, please accept it. And while you do that, we can follow, go to the next person, who's Janice Tootie Jackson.
Starting time.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for allowing me this time to speak. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Janice.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I have been a resident of Esplanade Gardens for 54 years. As a young adult at the time, we invested in this community at a time when co-ops were unheard of. We specifically invested in this particular community in Harlem. I'm a New Yorker. I've lived in New York for 76 years, but we specifically invested in this community because of the open space, the sense of community, the lower density. And when I think about this project, these massive towers that is not in line with the community, the nature of the community at all, it really disturbs me. The developers have used comparisons using Esplanade Gardens, Savoy Manor, and other developments. Let me just break it down. Savoy Park, which is located just a few blocks from this proposed project, is not as tall, but it is spread out over 3 square blocks. The same with Drew Hamilton, which is NYCHA housing. It's spread out over 2 square blocks, and the buildings are dispersed from one another, so light can pass through. Esplanade Gardens is spread out over 4 square blocks, so there's open space, light passes through. Lenox Terrace over 4 square blocks. This proposed project, these massive towers are
Time
being,
expired.
they propose to squeeze it on half of a city block, half a city block. So this is in addition to the lack of affordable housing. What I'm telling you is that the station at 145th Street is not only half length, the platform is shallow. So that crowding on that station, if you put all of these additional units, is a hazard. It's a hazard. People have already talked about the congestion. It is during the times another speaker spoke, traffic at Lenox Avenue goes all the way up the hill to Amsterdam Avenue. That doesn't include when there's a Yankee game. On Lenox Avenue, it's congested from 145th Street all the way down to 129th Street. You sit on the bus and the bus can't move. This is the only
Ms.
entrance.
Jackson, I'm sorry, Ms. Jackson, could you just wrap it up for us real quick? We have a lot more.
This is the only entrance to the bridge into the Bronx, is at this intersection. Let me just sum it up by saying something that the councilwoman from Staten Island, Councilman Hanks, said. The developer, if he wants to move forward, needs to start again with the community and not try to ram something down our throat. It is offensive. It's offensive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Tootie Jackson. Sorry if I interrupted you.
No, that's okay.
All right, thank you so much.
Chair, and before I call on the next panelist, this will be a good time to make an announcement. If you have 2 minutes, but you can also submit your testimony in writing to us. To the email is landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Whether you're testifying or if you needed more than 2 minutes, we'll take your testimony after the hearing or during the hearing. The next speaker on this panel will be Donald Curtis.
Starting time.
Name is Donald Curtis. I hope everybody can hear me. President of Unified Black Caucus.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. I am the president and director of the Unified Black Caucus, and we have been adamantly opposed to this project since its inception. We have met several times with the developer, and the developer has a bulldoze type attitude that's disrespectful of this community. To bring in senior citizens into this project at this late stage and not at the inception of the original plan is just callous and disingenuous, and this cosmetic attempts that they're trying to push through right now must fail, and we are against this project. And never should a right to build outweigh the needs and the benefits and the objections of the community, the Native community. I'm born and raised right there on that strip, okay? And we are against this entire project, any building whatsoever. We met with the developers and they told us the original plans were exactly what we want for the community until they were contacted by former Governor James Patterson on behalf of Al Sharpton, and they were in talks for 5 years with select special interests, not the community. We are the community. You don't get to come in and bulldoze us. You don't get to come in and disrespect us. And then it's disingenuous that you put a plan out this morning that has no community review, no community input, not even the city council, not even the community board, a plan that you just admitted you put in this morning. We are against it. We don't want you to build anything there by right of anything over the objections of that community, my community, not your community. And a lot of people are speaking for this project. You're not from that community. I'm born and raised there and 60 years old, never seen you, never heard of you. And your special interest is for benefits of profit margin, not the community at hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald. The next speaker on this panel is Julius Tajudin. Sorry if I mispronounced your name, Julius.
Starting time.
Do we have Julius?
I don't see Julius here.
So let me try one last time. Thank you, Chair. For Michelle Portillo. Michelle, are you there?
Oh,
Yeah, we can hear you, Michelle.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Starting
So,
time.
right now I'm having a booster for the vaccine, so I'm unable to really speak. I did prepare something. I've resided in Esplanade all of my life. I mean, in Harlem all of my life, and I've been a resident of Esplanade Gardens for over 50 years. This project is just too massive for the community. And when we met with Mr. Titlebaum, with the developer, things were different. They said that they did have a proposal for a 7-foot unit for 5 7-foot unit buildings. Now they don't know anything about that. And also to reiterate what others have said about this morning, to come on board and say that you're bringing in units for seniors, as Mr. Curtis just spoke, that is disingenuous because you didn't even consider seniors from the beginning of the project. And when we spoke to Mr. Titlebaum in May of 2021, when we first heard about this project, he said that this was brought to several politicians 4 to 5 years ago. When we spoke to one, he said he didn't know anything about it. Then we found out that he's on the board of directors. So there seems to be a lot of back and forth, things that are being said that are not true. And as Councilwoman Richardson said, please speak the truth. I oppose this project, and I ask everyone else to vote against this. Thank you. I need my time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. The next panel is going to be John Maher, Tamika Mapp, Dave Tavlin, and Karen Smith Moore. John Maher is the first panelist.
Starting time.
John, are you there? Can you accept the unmute request?
Good morning. John Marr here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Excellent. I'd like to thank the panel for hearing the zoning issue today. I'm a Harlem resident and a housing justice attorney. I'm here to oppose the current as envisioned 145 upzoning development in Harlem. I feel it will be deleterious to the community, inequitable in terms of environmental and racial justice, and therefore should be sent back to the City Planning Commission for a redo or reconsideration. There are too many reasons to list in 2 minutes, but I would like to say that number one, one simply cannot tell from the data, especially the yesterday afternoon data dump, exactly how many units will be considered affordable housing. Whether there is a greater policy debate within the housing justice community regarding affordable housing at all. And I fail to see how this narrative of upzoning by Bruce Teitelbaum and his politically connected wife, Miss Kassirer, is anything other than the same historic narrative in Harlem, where where basically politically connected outside people monetize the community zoning rights, which afford to the residents of Harlem, as you know, a Black and Latino community who are underserved chronically by the administration, And what this leads to is basically a mechanism of extraction where the development will provide a permanent means of extraction of revenue from people living in Harlem, and it will provide very little value, lasting value to people of Harlem. The other thing I question is the eco-friendly jobs. I do not believe, sorry? I do not believe their permanent jobs will be created on a meaningful basis. These are not middle or upper management jobs. These are kind of servant jobs. And I believe that this is part of the, attempt by Teitelbaum and other developers to foster a plantation ocene economy on Harlem, where basically the residents are ethnically cleansed from their rent stabilized apartments and replaced by poor door luxury 421A tax giveaway developments. I'm not in favor of this at all, nor should anybody with a responsible view towards urban planning in particular and racial justice in Harlem support. The other thing is,
John, sorry to interrupt you, if you could just wrap it up. Thank you.
I'll just conclude by saying I oppose it and I support Council Member Jordan's efforts to send this ill-conceived proposal back to the Planning Board. Thank you, members of the committee. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Riley. Good afternoon.
Thank you, John, and sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Thank you, John. The next speaker on this panel will be Tamika Mapp.
Starting time.
Hi, thank you so much, Chair, Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to let me speak. My name is Tamika Mapp. I'm the State Committee Woman for the 68th Assembly District, and I oppose this one zoning. One, the reason why it does not bring affordable housing that we desperately need for our community. The developers need to go back to Councilmember Richardson Jordan, which has an AMI layout for the community that would justify having housing in our community. The second one is environmental. They didn't really think about the environmental studies coming into the district at all. So I totally support Councilmember Richardson Jordan. The developers need to go back to her office in an open meeting with the Housing Committee to try to get this right if they want truly affordable housing in our community, because right now, 95% of the development that's going to go up, if y'all approve this, is not for our community. Long-term Harlemites won't be able to get into that building, and we desperately need housing that's affordable to everybody's pockets, not just to the high 145% of the development. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tamika. The next speaker is Dave Tavelin.
Starting time.
Dave, you're on mute.
I'd like to follow up about the settler colonialism kind of thing going on. So I'm reading from this CSS, whatever, Community Service Society. This was before Eric Adams became mayor. The largest increase in NYPD referred complaints occurred in communities of color with large influxes of white residents accompanied by new housing development. But within these areas, the complaint rate increased significantly faster, where new city finance affordable housing development was also present. City finance affordable housing is intended in part to keep longtime residents of marginalized communities stay in the communities they call home. But if staying in these communities means facing a changing cultural landscape that doesn't resemble the old one, increasingly places longtime residents at risk of heightened police engagement, then city housing policy has failed them. And just as I'm a New Yorker, I've lived up here 6 years, and the amount, I'm just a little southeast, and we've got rezoned, and it's just insane the amount of police that are on the streets. We all know who is getting hassled by the police. I've seen it with my own eyes, and I've seen it in Bushwick, in Lower East Side, and the study was after the development. Before the development, Police come in and sweep communities, and we all know that. And besides the affordability, we've lost people in my community garden because they can't stay here. And this green thing is like, there's a park right across the street, and there's no garbage cans, trash cans. I mean, come on, like, let's talk about it, and like, let's like not, with the greenwashing stuff. Nobody can afford it. I can't afford it. I've lived here. I can't afford to move into any of these buildings, and we, let's call it what it is. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave. The last speaker on this panel is Karen Smith Moore.
Starting time.
Unmute. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you, dear. Good afternoon, council. Thank you for the audience. My name is Cameron Smith Moore, and I have been a resident of Esplanade for over 25 years. Regarding the 145 project, I am opposed to it. Many of the reasons I have against it has already been spoken for, so I don't want to belabor those issues. However, I heard a lot of, we think from developers and politicians whom none live in the area, but seem to believe that they know what's best for the community over what is actually beneficial to the community. Many of the new developments that have already been built in Harlem are not only unaffordable for the median income, but a lot of them are not even completely occupied because people cannot afford to live in a lot of these developments that have already been built. Many of the youth who were raised here cannot afford to stay here if they so choose without enlisting 2 or 3 roommates to help them pay for the unit. And I just want to reiterate, Mr. Nadal stated regarding the 145th Street train station, which is going to be directly under this potential project. He stated that statistically, it's underused in comparison to stations, which is inaccurate because many of the commuters in the area utilize that subway station. And I'm just concerned of how structurally it's going to be sound for it to be a half a station with an additional 1,000 commuters. That's going to be an issue that I don't think they really checked into. And, I seem to hear a lot of these people for the project making it seem as if Harlem residents don't want any type of development for the betterment of the community. That's not true. We do want development, but we want to be included in what would be beneficial and what we need in this community, like learning centers for the youth, recreational centers for the youth, things like that that would be beneficial. Yes, why is it that they could not, lastly, why is it that they could not provide these jobs and build stuff like that that we need in the community without attaching affordable housing, which we know is not affordable to this median income? And I'd like to thank Councilwoman Christensen Jordan for representing us so well. I appreciate you and everyone else that are doing the best that they can for this community. Thank you. And again, I am opposed to that project.
Thank you, Karen. Chair, I see Julius is back from the prior panel. We're going to add him to this one. So Julius, go ahead.
Starting time. Julius, you're connecting to audio now. Accept the unmute request, please.
Okay, I'm heard now?
Yes.
All right, good morning, council members. The majority of Central Harlem's residents, mostly Black, are against the project as race plays a role in this application. I'd like to first point out a couple of things. Everyone else from Harlem has done so well, so I'm gonna now narrow what I have to say. I'd like to first point out the word gentrification. We use it so nonchalantly, but really it stands for a condition that is brought about by unlawful measures of a government body. Just recently, we saw the Court of Appeals strike down the redistricting of our congressional and state senator lines. The task of redistricting is allowed, but how it was done became unlawful. This developer also uses flighty words like "we think it should," and would like you to do an unlawful rezoning. I urge you to reject this application completely on the following grounds. This project doesn't consider the displacement that a 421A project can cause due to higher property taxes that will be burdened on the private homeowners in the neighborhood. We also see this project as the knife that will end our Black people's plurality status in Central Harlem, or the one that's right before such knife. This is a right that's protected by the Voting Rights Act. Most people see redistricting as the method used affecting the voting rights of a protected class of people, such as Black people, within the meaning of the Voting Rights Act. However, rezonings are akin to redistrictings. A rezoning is technically a reapportionment, which is the word that's used by the DOJ. So reapportioning the development plane to the developer's liking in a Harlem worst case development scenario usually redistributes the pie, if you will, at 70% to open market apartments and 25% to whoever, likely occupied by mostly non-Black. Black people in Central Harlem are not looking for development that outpaces our growth. In other words, building housing models mainly for the rich and a few for lower income, usually Black, will eventually displace us. We don't have to accept this. Then the jobs that are alleged, let's be real. Most of these private construction jobs do not go to Black people. Using the words minority and people of color have been very useful in keeping Black people out of employment. This is one of the reasons why we have a problem with our young Black men. An idle mind is a devil's workshop. We are tired of these shams and cons. I urge you strongly to reject this project 100% and let them start over.
Thank you, Julius. I'm going to call on the next panel, which will be made up of Kim Smith, Tanisha Grant, Beverly Pavon, Giselle Hearn. Kim Smith will be the first one on that panel.
Starting time.
Do we have Kim? We'll go back to Kim. I'm going to call on Tanisha Grant next.
Starting time.
Tanisha or Kim, if you get an unmute request, can you please accept it so we can hear you? While we wait for that, I'm going to call on Beverly Pavon.
Starting time.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everyone, for giving me this opportunity to speak. Am I heard?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Beverly Pavon. I'm a longtime resident of Harlem, born and raised, actually a third generation of Harlemites here. So I have a vested interest in what's going on in the community. For a long time, I have not been politically invested in what's going on because I didn't think things work politically for us. But I see now recently, because of the housing situations, that we have to get involved. I'm against this 145 program because of the benefits that it would give more so to the developer than the community. I understand that by right that this new construction will get a 421A benefit, and I don't think analysis has been made in regarding the at the moment it would be beneficial to whoever can afford to live in these buildings for now for low income, but they will be priced out in the years to come. The 421 benefits will be beneficial to the developer for over 30 years with property taxes are not being paid for this development. So which those property taxes are not being paid by this developer, programs that's needed for housing and low income or schools and education would not be funded because they're not getting the revenue, which would benefit which would not benefit the community. So I would like to see an analysis, like almost like a immunization of the tax benefits under the 421 will give this developer to how the affordability will be to the community. That needs to be addressed because you will see over the time period that we will be priced out. So I am against this program. I thank everyone who's been talking against it. I thank the support that we were getting from Richardson, Jordan, and other community council people. And I ask that you definitely say no to this project. Thank you so very much for the time.
Thank you, Beverly. The next speaker on this panel is Giselle Hearn.
Starting time.
Hi, everyone. My name is Giselle Hearn. I lived in this community for 60 years. And I just wanted to say, you know, it is a big no on this project here for the simple fact, the community has never been involved in anything, and we wouldn't have been involved in this had Kristen not been elected city council. So that's a problem right there. The problem is that we get all of these new developments and buildings coming up, and we don't have it. Boom, it's there. You know, we didn't vote for that storage on 145th Street, but with this here project on 145 with Teitelbaum, they lied to us to our face many times. We set up a meeting with them as a community to talk with them, with the city council, and nobody showed. And then they sent us this very nasty letter talking about how they did not want to meet with all of, they felt like they, you know, they didn't want to meet with the community. They felt like the community didn't have anything to offer to this project. And also, again, like the young lady Beverly just said, you know, with these taxes coming in, the prices is going to go up for everything, because now we got to foot the bill for this development, these buildings that are going up. And we don't know what type of businesses they're going to put in there that's going to outprice us again. We can barely pay rent and have food at the same time, you know, and take care of our kids. And the people who are moving into these new developments will not be sending their children to CS 200, to PS 194. They're going to send them to schools like Calhoun. They're going to send them to schools that is going to be really totally out of the community, and we do not benefit those. So now, where are we when it comes to the things that we need for our community? We won't get funding, you know. So we're just asking the council to vote no for this project here on 145. Thank you.
Thank you, Giselle. I'm going to move on to the next panel. And for those of you in this panel that we missed, and I don't see the council member or any council members with questions, so I'm going to move on to the next panel.
Hey, Tanisha
Grant, I'm here.
Tanisha's here.
Right.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Go
Ms.
ahead,
Grant.
Tanisha.
I'm
very sorry, but I was just getting an award from Monty Williams for being an essential worker for the work that I do. So sorry that I had to. Nah, I'm not sorry, but that's what I was doing. So my name is Tanisha Grant. I am the executive director of Parent Support and Parents New York. We are a community-based organization that mainly works in Harlem. I don't know, maybe you've heard of Parent Support and Parents New York or Moms United for Black Lives. We give Harlem children, Black and brown Harlem children, unapologetically the technology they deserve, because the system seems to think that they don't deserve it. So our organization gives children computers that cost over $1,200. What I'm hearing on this call is very disturbing. I'm hearing these developers come in and not really pay attention to the community. Because if you think that 300 units of so-called affordable housing is helping the community of Harlem when we have 19 shelters, there is something seriously wrong. I was on them calls with the developers, and
I have been on the ground doing the work that I have done for a long time. And when they say that they had community involvement, I don't understand what they're talking about, because I knew nothing of this until several months ago. This is not great for Harlem. This is not great for affordable housing. You cannot put up a 900 apartment high riser on 145th and then say that it's good for the community. That would not be good for the community. What would be good for community is for us to be able to afford high quality, modern, affordable housing that goes with our pay range, what we make, our income. I would like to echo a lot of my comrades on here. The affordable housing, the narrative is very misleading. And what it does is it's trying to displace the Black people who have lived in Harlem for generations. We will fight this, and we hope that this committee stands with us and votes no on this zoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanisha, and congratulations on your award. I'm going to call on the next panel, as there are no council members with questions, Chair. So the next panel will be.
Council, can we just try Ms. Samuels one more time before we move on to the next?
Sure. Kim Smith, are you there?
I think it's Samuels, Kim Samuels.
She's actually on the next panel, Chair.
No problem. All right, cool.
Yeah, you're just for all of you who are waiting, if you haven't testified, we'll do a last call where you can raise your hand and we'll get to you if we missed you. So the next panel is Ray Dietz, Sora Yara, Kay Samuels, and Ahmad Akkad. Ray Dietz, first one.
Still being promoted into the room.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, starting time.
Hi, Council. My name is Ray Dietz. I work with the Justice Center in El Barrio. We're a community center in East Harlem, and I have been a resident of Sugar Hill of Harlem for the past 3 years. I staunchly oppose the construction of the 145 towers, which represent yet another land grab by developers looking to gentrify Harlem and profit from the immiseration of poor and working people, specifically the Black residents of Harlem. Less than a third of the proposed units are 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom apartments, which means that the developers are not seeking to house families who are long-term residents of Harlem at risk of displacement. Rents in the city have risen 33% in the last year, which represents the highest spike among America's largest cities. Instead of supporting this plan that would disrupt the entire community's quality of life, let us take note of the warehoused apartment buildings in our neighborhood that have been boarded up by slumlords for years. Right now, there are enough vacant rent-regulated apartments to house everyone living in the city shelter system and thousands more. Yes, the city needs more affordable housing, but this proposed project is a far cry from what is actually needed. I defer to Councilmember Jordan, our rightfully concerned neighbors, and my fellow speakers who do not stand to financially benefit from this project. I agree with Councilmember Jordan's concerns about this potential development, especially the lack of community input and support for this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Sorry, I mispronounced your last name earlier. The next speaker is Sora Yara, who I believe is joining us by phone.
Starting time.
Do we have Sora, or should we move on to the next one and go back to her? Sora, you're not unmuting, so we'll come back to you. So the next speaker now will be Kay Samuels.
Starting time.
Oh, hello, can you see me?
We can hear
Hello?
you. We can hear you, and we can see you now.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was having some tech problem. Wanted to say that I am just amazed at my council member and the other young council members in terms of the questions that they asked at the beginning of this. They really seem to be able to go past the BS and to understand what is really going on with this housing project. I also want to say how disappointed I am in the unions that are supporting this project. And I don't believe they've had any discussion with the council member. I know they have not spoken to the community at large. I also want to say that for years, the community has basically been cut out of the process of involvement in terms of the types of housing that is going on in our community. So it's really great to have an opportunity to have a serious discussion about this and for it to be known far and wide that the community does not want this project. This project is overly large, and it also basically gives very little to the community in terms of the housing. Our cultural integrity in terms of Harlem has now been basically turned into a cartoon where people just come in and say, well, I live in Harlem, but they really don't understand and know the area. It's basically just been to push us out, the Black community out, and bring everybody else into the community. And that subway station will become a danger to the people who live in that area if those buildings are allowed to go up. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I hope you turn down this project. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker will be Ahmad Akkad.
Starting time.
Hello, my name is Ahmad Akkad. I'm opposed to this project for many of the reasons that have been listed. So instead of giving those reasons, I'll just give us my experience. I work for the city of New York. I've been in New York for 20 years, most of that in Harlem. I was displaced from Harlem and moved across to South Bronx because I could not afford to stay in Harlem. And many of the reasons for this project are the same reasons that were given for the development in South Bronx. And in the time in South Bronx, I witnessed affordability collapse in South Bronx. And I was only able to move back to Harlem due to the pandemic and rents collapsing. And so the jobs that they were creating, the people who created those jobs or who worked those jobs were not able to live in South Bronx. They were temporary jobs. Most of them, the people who worked there, did not live in South Bronx. Local businesses closed because, you know, the cost of living increased. I'm hearing the same stories that I heard in South Bronx. And for me, as a city worker, a disabled veteran who's jumping around from place to place, I've been displaced from Harlem. I'm not trying to be displaced again. And the same reasons that they're giving today are the same reasons that they gave in South Bronx. And as you can see, we're being displaced in both communities. And so I oppose this project, and that's, I'll give you your time back.
Thank you for your testimony. For the next panel, Chair, I'm going to need some help from those of you who can hear me in the hearing. So if, you know, there's currently 5 Lisa McCracken, council member, I believe Lisa works for you, but there's 5 Lisas in the Zoom right now. So can the real Lisa raise her hand so that we can identify you? And okay, so we have Lisa now identified. So the rest of you who are named Lisa, I'm assuming you got the link. So again, if you know, there's still a little time for those of you that haven't registered to do so. But I think at this point we can call on some of you. If you haven't testified, just identify yourselves when you give your testimony. Lisa, are you providing testimony?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Lisa, go ahead.
Starting time.
Good afternoon. Thank you. We spoke about the affordable housing, which we know is an oxymoron. There's no such thing as affordable housing with this 145 project. I do want to speak about the 916 units that you are adding to this building with only 124 parking spaces. Parking is at a premium right now in this neighborhood. And again, we ride around 2-3 hours looking for parking. I also want to talk about this retail space that you talked about, that you reached out to, Sweet Mamas. I am a lifelong Harlem resident. I've been here 50 years on 148th Street. I have seen that corner, the development, the retail spaces, King Charlie's. We had a fresh meat market that is gone. We no longer have access to that. All those little stores, all those little community stores are gone. You reached out to Sweet Mama and asked if they would stay. What about the other businesses? What about the other stores? Where's the economic development that feeds into our community to keep our community growing? I am anti-145th. I think it is a horrible idea. I think the setup of how you have the low income affordable housing in that little small tiny space speaks volume to how you are disingenuous to the people in the community and what you can offer us. I am rent burdened as other residents are. This 145 project is not for this community, is not for this people. I am not speaking as a council member or working for the council member. I am speaking of a lifelong Harlem resident who has been in court for several years fighting my landlord just to try to stay in my apartment. Again, 145 is a horrible project. Please come back with something else and make it 100% affordable housing for the Harlem residents that are here that are making $45,000 a year and less, because that is the true AMI. That is the number that you need to look at, and that is what we need to focus on. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Chair, it looks like, again, we need your help for those of you who are here to provide testimony, either because you were in a panel before and you haven't provided testimony, or it looks like some of you may have rejoined, but we don't know if, if you are who you are as identified by you. So if you're here to provide testimony, please raise your hand right now. Chair, I have Jasmine with her hand raised.
Yes.
Jasmine, go ahead.
Starting time.
Hi, thank you. So I really don't have much to say other than I just want to show my support for not approving the 145 project. I am a third generation Esplanade Gardens. My grandparents moved here when Esplanade Gardens first was developed. And my mother has lived here, and now myself and my family live here. And I am wanting to just attest to, especially the congestion, especially to the lack of affordability, that this will just put an undue burden in the neighborhood. And I definitely just want to commend Councilman Jordan for her hard work and really putting these developers to the fire and making sure that they are held accountable. So I just want to say that I do not support this project, and I would love for the city council to vote against the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. I believe there's a couple of unknown callers. There's one 4487, a few others. So if you're here to provide testimony, if you could press *9 on your phone so that you can raise your hand and our staff can identify you and unmute you. Again, *9 from your phone. Doesn't look like anyone's raising their hand. So once again, if you're here to provide testimony and you have not provided your testimony yet, can you please raise your hand so staff can identify you? Chair, I don't see anyone else's hand raised, so. Let me just confirm with staff that this is the last of it, but that might be all. 1 second.
Okay.
So the meeting will stand at ease while we identify a couple of people. Thank you. We just had a person that just signed up, so we just need a couple minutes to let them in. Just 1 second. Thanks everyone for your patience. While we wait for that person, if we could try Adrian Thomas, can you unmute yourself? It doesn't look like we have Adrian. Give me 1 second, Chair. We're trying to get that last minute registration. The next person that I'm going to call on is Robert Thibault, who just registered. Robert, are you there? Chair, looks like he dropped. So if you want to just go back to your remarks and do a last call, just in case we have anyone that we couldn't get Adrian and anyone else. Like I said, you can submit written testimony, a land use testimony at council.nyc.gov. But Chair, you can do a last call.
Thank you, Council. And we just want to do a last call for anybody who wants to testify or give any remarks regarding the 145 project. Just last call.
We have Moira Davis with hand raised, but I believe Moira already registered. Is it somebody else that's using Moira's link? Maura, is that you or is it somebody else?
Yes, it is me. I wanted to just mention I'm the board president at Esplanade Gardens, but something that was not mentioned during this entire meeting was how dangerous 145th Street is. We've on March the 28th, 2 of my residents were struck on that corner, a young woman and her son who's 6 years old. The mother died from her injuries and the son is still fighting in the hospital. We're going to pray him home. But I just want to say that this project in this community has suffered a lot with different dealing with a lot of adversities. And I'm really hoping that we do come back to the table with something that's palatable to the community. We're not opposed to developing the property.
Ms.
Yes.
Davis, thank you so much.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
if
you.
you have any further testimony, you could submit it to us written, okay?
We'll be sending you guys a written submission too. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maura. And it looks like, Chair, I just got word we may have Robert ready to testify. Robert, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Starting time.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Rezoning is ethnic cleansing. Between 2000 to 2013, the white population increased by 455%, while the Black population declined by 5%. And the Latino population declined by 13% as a result of a 2003 and 2009 rezoning in Harlem. This upzoning, which is a giveaway to Bruce Teitelbaum, will continue this trend of erasing Harlem's Black American culture while continuing the 421A tax credit scam of not providing housing as a human right. The average household income in Harlem is around $49,000, yet these disingenuously described affordable apartments at 145 will be based on the citywide AMI of 107,400. This is systemic economic violence perpetrated in favor of the 145 project against the will of the people It approves that that the City Planning Commission is an illegitimate, unelected body that must be abolished. This upzoning is inherently a racist and classist tool of white supremacy to ethnically cleanse Harlem's Black community while denying this same community self-determination, and will destroy, in this case, the Black culture of Harlem. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert Teagle, for your testimony. And Chair, I think that was the last person we have testifying. As you said, people can submit testimony.
Thank you, Council. There being no other members of the public who wish to testify on LUs 53 through 57 relating to 145 Museum of Civil Rights rezoning proposal, the public hearing is now closed and the items are laid over. That concludes today's business. I would like to thank the members of the public, my colleagues, subcommittee council, land use and council staff, and the Sergeant of Arms for participating in today's meeting. The meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.